Chapter 33-34. Speaking until here, Xiao Hua waved his hand and disappeared from the constable's sight. He looked at Xiao Jian and the others and shouted, "You all follow me." Yes, Xiao Jian did not know why Xiao Hua suddenly stopped, but he still turned his head obediently. Currently, Seven Suns Temple was a place of trouble, so Xiao Jian did not dare to stay for long. Xiao Hua had just left when the constable was covered in sweat and collapsed on the ground. Xiao Hua gave him too much power. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but an indescribable tiredness emerged from the bottom of his heart. Moreover, an unpleasant smell of urine came from his crotch. He lowered his head in shock, and only then did he realize that he had unknowingly peed himself. Xiao Hua's face was like water, and his eyes were filled with anger. He walked out of Seven Suns Temple's dilapidated mountain gate step by step. The surrounding villagers all lowered their heads and hurriedly made way for him. Even the surrounding constables did not dare to block him and dispersed in panic. After crossing the small bridge over the river, they arrived at the smelly street. At this moment, there were no pedestrians on the street. It was obvious that the surrounding residents and pedestrians were gathered at Seven Suns Temple to watch the show. Xiao Jian looked around and walked a few steps to Xiao Hua's side. He said softly, "Senior, there must be something fishy about Senior Dao Shan's death." "You?" Xiao Jian, hearing this, Xiao Hua stopped and looked at this cultivator who was once the ruler of a country. He said word by word, "To be honest, I do not have a good impression of you. It can be said that this period of time has been testing you. I will not hide the results of the test from you. You still cannot satisfy me. If it was not for Dao Shan's matter and the tragedy of Seven Suns Temple, I would not have helped you. However, now, I understand. Every disciple of the Dao sect is precious. Although you have flaws, you are still a disciple of the Dao sect. I am a senior of the Dao sect. If I don't help you, who else can I help? Now, even if I want to help Dao Shan and let him live for another 100 years, it is impossible. Therefore, Xiao Jian, you must cherish this opportunity and not disappoint me again." As Xiao Hua spoke, he waved his hand and a heavenly mending pill appeared in his hand. "This is my Dao sect's heavenly mending pill. It's a spirit medicine used to repair your meridians and dantian. Your cultivation has been crippled, so you need this to restore your strength. Furthermore, this old man promises to help you restore your country. Chase the Buddhist sect out of the country." Disciple thanks Master. Xiao Jian was truly overjoyed. The long-cherished wish that he had always kept in mind had actually come true at this moment. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to express his gratitude. Xiao Hua said indifferently, "This old man is only helping you, a disciple of the Dao sect. I will not accept you as a disciple. Yes, Senior has been so kind to this junior, comparable to a teacher. Junior will perform the etiquette of a disciple in front of Senior for the rest of my life," Xiao Jian hurriedly said. "As you wish." Xiao Hua handed the sky-mending pill to Xiao Jian, then looked at Fu Jiwen and said, "Fellow Taoist Fu, Xiao Jian and the others' cultivation levels are low. I originally wanted to send them out of the Bronze Pillar Nation, but I was afraid that there would be more changes in the Seven Suns Monastery. Therefore, I will have to trouble fellow Taoists to send them out of the Bronze Pillar Nation." Fellow Taoist Xiao once to Fujiwen had been silent the entire time. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, he immediately understood what Xiao Hua was thinking. He hurriedly said, "Although Great Master Dao Shan's death is extremely strange, now that the Bronze Pillar Nation's government is involved, from what the constable said, there seems to be more secrets. If fellow Taoist wants to speak up for Great Master Dao Shan, you must have evidence. Otherwise, you will be going against the entire Bronze Pillar Nation. Immortal elder." Just as Fu Jiwen was persuading Xiao Hua, a disheveled child beggar called out softly beside a dilapidated house in the distance. "See, isn't this the evidence?" Xiao Hua smiled and said, "You can go now. I will go find you later. You don't need to persuade me anymore. Just like what you saw at the auction. Although I want to settle things peacefully sometimes, there are people who want to ride on my head and shit on me. Sometimes, I feel that I can tolerate it and use slightly more peaceful methods to deal with it. However, human nature is too evil. Kind people are bullied and kind horses are ridden. Always enduring and giving in is not the best strategy. Dao Shan's tragedy made me see clearly that the filth of this world still needs to be used with thunderous methods. Otherwise, what is the use of heavenly thunder in this world? What is the use of righteous spirit? Today, I will control the heavenly thunder and kill these rascals. Immortal Elder Yuanya shook his head. This kid is not talented, shut up. Xiao Hua did not wait for him to finish speaking. He waved his hand and took out a magic hammer and handed it to him. Seeing that you are not used to using the stick, it's better to use the hammer. In the future, hold this hammer by yourself. I don't care anymore. Yes, Immortal Elder. Yuanya did not dare to contradict Xiao Hua, and took the hammer and replied. Lu Yi was still quick-witted, and said from the side. Taoist Elder, you should do your own things. After we leave Bronze Pillar Nation, we will head towards Jiang Country. Our leg strength is not as good as Taoist Elders, so we will wait for you in front. And go, don't delay. Xiao Hua waved his Taoist robe, and quickly walked towards the beggar who had already shrunk his head. Fellow Taoists, let's leave quickly. Fu Jiwen looked at Xiao Hua's skinny back and walked away resolutely. His eyes flashed with an indescribable light as he urged Xiao Jian and the others. We can't help Senior Xiao. It's best if we don't become his burden and leave as soon as possible. Yes, Xiao Jian carefully hid the heaven-mending pill, and with Xiao Hua's promise to help him restore his country, he hurriedly followed Fu Jiwen towards the city gates of Bronze Pillar Nation. Xiao Hua walked into the dilapidated house, but after a while, he calmly walked out again. Looking at the Seven Suns Temple in the distance, the corner of his mouth raised a few times in disdain, and he muttered to himself. Since ancient times, officials and bandits have always been close. How can the officials of Bronze Pillar Nation be an exception? Since I am sure, how can I let you all go? Immediately after, just as Xiao Hua was about to activate the flying talisman, he saw a 1 zhong tall stone tablet on the side of the street. This stone tablet was very old, and the words on it had long been worn out, making it impossible to clearly see what it was. Xiao Hua walked in front of the stone tablet, looked at it, and said with a smile, I was just worried that I didn't have anything to erect a stone tablet for Dao Shan. This thing is very good. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, grabbed the side of the stone tablet and shouted, Rise inside the Seven Suns Temple, in front of the main hall. The constable who had just been scared to death was sitting on a dilapidated chair. It was as if he had just come back to life, and there was a trace of blood on his face. Next to him stood a few constables, as well as an old man with a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks. Although the constable's voice was trembling, he still forced himself to be calm. Who am I? I am a constable under the magistrate's command. Although that guy has some tricks up his sleeve, he is still a remnant of the Taoist sect, so how could he dare to oppose me? Lend him 10 more guts. Just as the constable said this, he suddenly felt that something was wrong, and hurriedly looked around, but didn't see anything strange. However, a moment later he heard the sound of wind whistling in his ears. He hurriedly raised his head and saw a huge black shadow descending from the sky. That black shadow blocked the scorching sun, and the constable was so frightened that he hurriedly jumped up from his chair. Unfortunately, just as his but left the chair, a voice that made him tremble with fear came from midair. I don't need to lend you more guts. As long as I have a pure loyalty in my heart, it will suffice. As Xiao Hua's voice fell, the several zhang long and several qi tall stone pillar also fell from midair, and with a rumbling sound, it caused the entire Seven Suns Temple to shake. What are you doing? The constable was shocked. I am the constable of the Copper Pillar State. If you dare to hurt me, the Copper Pillar State will definitely cut you into 1,000 pieces and chop you into mincemeat. Ha ha ha! Xiao Hua's figure landed on the stone pillar, and his gaze swept across the Seven Suns Temple as he said, The Taoist sects of the world have long declined, and the hidden immortal Taoist sect has opened today. With me, Xiao Hua, in this world, you dare to let your disciples be bullied and humiliated? Xiao Hua's voice was extremely loud, and it spread in all directions, following which he coldly said, If a person blocks me, I will kill a person. If a city blocks me, I will kill a city. If a country blocks me, I will kill a country. How dare you? The constable was so frightened that his face turned pale, and his shout was no different from begging for mercy, while the monkey-faced old man beside him trembled and shouted, "Immortal elder, you are an immortal elder. How can you lower yourself to the same level as us? How can you kill people like us who don't even have the strength to truss a chicken?" Daoshan also doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, but he actually choked himself to death. "Since you all are the same, then choke yourselves to death too." Xiaohua sneered and waved his hand. "Wu Qian, prepare to die." When the constable named Wu Qian heard this, he trembled even more, and hurriedly shouted, "Immortal elder, this is not this little one's," looking at Wu Qian who seemed to be begging for mercy, but suddenly, Wu Qian's hand reached into his bosom, and a 1-foot-long scroll was taken out from his bosom. A sinister smile appeared on his face, and without even thinking, he waved his hand, and that scroll was blown away by the wind. Thousands of noble qi moved along with the scroll, like a whirlwind, and a several feet long light pillar stirred up the noble qi, and shot towards Xiaohua's chest. Ha ha ha, although Confucian cultivators cultivate the noble qi, how can this noble qi be the same as the noble qi of the world in your hands? Not to mention that this scroll can't hurt this Xiao. Even if it's 10 times the size of a scroll, what can you do? Xiaohua laughed loudly, and raised the wishful staff in his hand. Big, big, big 3 times in a row. The wishful staff became 10 feet long and as thick as a bowl. With a wave of Xiaohua's arms, boom, it hit the light pillar of the scroll. Puff. After hearing the rumbling of the earth, the scroll couldn't withstand the power of Xiaohua's wishful staff, and was actually broken by the force, turning into thousands of fragments floating in the air. Wu Qian was so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. He had never heard of anyone who could break a scroll written by a great scholar, with just a weapon. "Immortal elder, please spare my life. This little one is willing to say anything." After being surprised, Wu Qian immediately begged for mercy. As a constable, he knew better than anyone the importance of begging for mercy. Chapter 33-36. Xiaohua sneered. Why would he care about Wu Qian's begging? He stretched out his hand again, and the soul-searching finger that could move the starry sky appeared between Wu Qian's eyebrows. This time, Xiaohua did not hesitate and even said, "I don't need your surrender, and I don't need your information. The things in your soul are far more reliable than the things in your mouth." Wu Qian's entire world was shattered, and it could no longer be restored. Everything about him had turned into a grayish-black color. Seeing Wu Qian standing there in a daze, not moving an inch, and Xiaohua's outstretched hand flickering with a faint dark green radiance, the monkey-faced old man and the other bailiffs didn't dare to stay any longer. Each and every one of them forced themselves to focus and did their best to move their trembling legs, wanting to escape from Seven Suns Temple. Xiaohua's eyes were tightly shut, and his face became increasingly serious and gloomy. A kind of killing intent was gradually emitted from his body. Seeing that the constables had already escaped from the Seven Suns Temple, Xiaohua raised his hand, and the God Power Centipede came out from the space. "Go," Xiaohua ordered. "Kill him and him." Wu the God Power Centipede whistled and flew out from the Seven Suns Temple. In an instant, there were 4 blood-curdling screams outside, and the hysterical screams of the crowd. "Run! The demon is killing people!" Amidst the panicked screams, the God Power Centipede quickly flew back. Its body was surrounded by black gas, and it was truly terrifying. Xiaohua pulled his hand out from between Wu Qian's eyebrows and said coldly, "I didn't expect you to be even more sinister than the mountain bandits. No less than 20 people have died in your hands. Today I'll let you off easy." As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the God Power Centipede flew over again. The 2 antennae in front of its head were 10 times sharper than scissors, and it flashed past Wu Qian's waist. After the cold light passed, Wu Qian's body still stood there quietly. Only the blood that gushed out afterwards showed that he had been cut in half by the God Power Centipede. "This blood can't be wasted." Xiaohua looked at it and sneered. He flew up again and used his hand to push the stone tablet that was half a meter deep into the ground. He forcefully pushed it several meters into the ground, leaving only about half a meter above the ground. It was just like an erect tablet. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and put his index finger and middle finger together to write on the stone tablet. This is the land of the Dao sect, only good people can enter. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy. Then, he waved his hand again, and several streaks of blood-red light flew out from Wuxian's body, and painted the words on the stone tablet. The dozen or so words couldn't be said to be neat or calligraphy, but their bloody appearance was truly terrifying. Alas, Grandmaster Daoshan Xiaohua sighed and walked to the main hall with light steps. He gently raised his hand and the originally tightly shut door opened with a soft sound. Xiaohua walked into the main hall quietly, as if he was afraid to disturb Daoshan's rest. Although Xiaohua had used his divine telekinesis to check on Daoshan, he could not help but grit his teeth when he saw Daoshan's miserable state with his own eyes. He saw Daoshan sitting cross-legged on a praying mat and facing many memorial tablets. He was still wearing the new Taoist robe that he wore when he saw Xiaohua. The white hair on his slightly drooping head was still neat and tidy. However, Daoshan's hands were now clutching his neck. His neck was bruised and the marks of 10 fingers were extremely obvious. What Xiaohua could not bear to look at the most was that Daoshan's face was green, and his eyes were wide open. An expression of disbelief lingered in his dead fish-like eyes. At this moment, Daoshan's eyes were protruding, as if all the resentment in his heart was concentrated there. His tongue was slightly stuck out of his mouth, and there was a layer of light purple. There were actually 2 or 3 rice grains in his dried saliva. Xiaohua shifted his gaze away from Daoshan, and his gaze fell on the shrine wall that was originally dedicated to the Dao ancestor. His gaze swept across the many old memorial tablets. Previously, Xiaohua did not feel anything when he saw these memorial tablets. Now it seemed to be divided into different categories. Each memorial tablet seemed to be mocking. It was the mocking of the Confucian cultivators to the Dao sect and the Buddhist sect to the Dao sect. Go. Xiaohua waved his hand and a few wisps of flame flashed. He said coldly, "Since you can't protect your disciples, what's the use of you staying here? Why don't you just go back? Even if you have the true body of the Dao ancestor, why do you need to worship the Dao sect's disciples when they are brutally killed? In the future, you might as well worship this Xiao." Seeing that the shrine wall of the main hall was slowly burning, Xiaohua turned around and waved his hand. He picked up Daoshan's remains out of thin air. As if Daoshan was still alive, he said indifferently, "Great Master Daoshan, this Xiao knows that you died with grievances. You don't know why you ended up like this after doing good deeds for your entire life. Since the heavens sent this Xiao here, then this Xiao will answer this question of yours. Follow this Xiao. This Xiao will let you see what is called black and white, what is called retribution, what is called killing without mercy." After walking out of the main hall, Xiaohua placed Daoshan's remains in front of the bloodsteel. Then he walked to the backyard. There were also several tens of pitiful Taoists who had the same appearance as Daoshan. Even the few fine horses that Xiaohua brought were lying dead in the corner of the wall. Looking at this miserable situation, Xiaohua was truly furious. He really couldn't think of how Wu Qian could make the coroner conclude that this was a suicide. This was really inconceivable and impossible to justify. However, at the same time, he also understood that this so-called justification was only a kind of explanation to others. Since others didn't need an explanation, and no one would stand up for the pitiful Dao sect's disciples, there naturally wasn't any need for an explanation. Soon after, Xiaohua put away those rations. Then his gaze fell on the corpses of these Taoists. Ba, Xiaohua pondered for a moment and released the Buddha's Saraira. As soon as the Buddha's Saraira appeared, it immediately gave rise to a heavenly phenomenon. A kind of unconcealable benevolence seemed to have materialized and spread in all directions. Not good. How could Xiaohua expect such an unforeseen event? He didn't have time to use the confrontation, divine ability, and hastily put the Saraira into his mind palace. Sure enough, as soon as the Buddha's Saraira disappeared, the heavenly phenomenon also disappeared. What is going on? Xiaohua was somewhat depressed. He was originally hesitating whether or not he should use the Buddha's Saraira to transcend these dozens of Dao sect's disciples. Since this wasn't appropriate, there was naturally no need to use it. Moreover, it had been a long time since they were brutally killed. Even if there were vengeful spirits, they should have already dissipated, right? Rise since the Buddha's Sarira couldn't be used, Xiaohua flew up. He clenched his fists and closed his eyes. He carefully comprehended the little bit of Buddha's seal technique that he had just comprehended. After that, he waved his hand. Boom! A loud sound resounded. As the earth and mountains shook, a deep hole several feet in size appeared on the ground. Disciples of the Tao sect, you can go now. I, Xiaohua, will redress your grievances and kill the culprit with my own hands. After saying that, Xiaohua sent the corpses of these Tao sect's disciples into the hole with a heavy heart, and buried them one by one. After burying the Tao sect's disciples, Xiaohua took the carriage that he came in from the rear courtyard to the front of the main hall. He removed the shed and placed Dao Shan's corpse on top of it. At this moment, there was a commotion outside the Seven Sons Monastery. It was very chaotic. There were already many soldiers and constables surrounding the Seven Sons Monastery. However, none of them dared to barge into the Seven Sons Monastery. They only stuck their heads out and looked around while holding their weapons and shouting outside. Blood steel, ah blood steel! Xiaohua stared at the bloody steel. I, Xiaohua, am not willing to stain my hands with blood. However, since someone dares to bully my Tao sect, I, Xiaohua, don't mind staining my hands with blood. Not to mention staining my hands with blood. Even if I enter the depths of the netherworld sea of blood, so what? I hope that the blood steel can wake up people who are blinded by greed. There is nothing in this world that can be covered up. In this world, there are also people who are not afraid of death and who are not afraid of evil. After he finished speaking, Xiaohua extended his index finger again and wrote the words, Xiaohua of the Tao sect, stroke by stroke under the blood steel. His handwriting was not familiar, but it contained the determination of that side. Because after these words, what Xiaohua had to face was no longer the carefree feeling he had in the past. What replaced it was a heavy burden and oppression. Perhaps there would also be endless pursuit. However, under this kind of choice, Xiaohua could not shirk his responsibility. The times create heroes. Perhaps, this was another era where heroes would appear in large numbers. Soon after, Xiaohua waved his hand. The Pegasus, Little Black and Little Yellow all flew out. Xiaohua whispered to Little Yellow and Little Black for a moment. The two little things turned into Black Lightning and Yellow Wind, and rushed out from the backyard. Xiaohua pulled the Pegasus, faced the sky and roared. He let the Pegasus pull the worn-out carriage and soared into the sky. Lu following Xiaohua's roar, the Pegasus also raised its head and roared. As if it had sensed the anger in Xiaohua's heart, the worn-out carriage flew high into the sky. The Pegasus spread its feathers that were several zhang long. A glaring brilliance shot out in all directions. It was even more glaring than the scorching sun at noon. Under this intense brilliance, Xiaohua put his hands behind his back and coldly looked into the distance. He simply did not care about the hundreds of villagers who were prostrating on the ground, and the hundreds of soldiers who were panicking. In Xiaohua's eyes, there was only the hatred of killing the main culprit, only the sorrow of the decline of the Taoist sect. He did not know that the Pegasus flight was already a leap in his mental state. It even more brilliantly opened a new chapter in the rise of the Taoist sects in the 3 continents. The Pegasus leaped through the sky and rushed out of the Seven Sons Temple. It did not fly towards the outside of the bronze pillars. Instead, it made a slight turn and directly landed at a place not too far away from the Seven Sons Temple. One could only see that this place was like a garden. There was a small bridge overflowing water. The sound of water gurgling could be heard. There were corridors and pavilions, and the lush greenery was faintly discernible. From time to time, there would be some scholars' robes and scarves swaying in the lush greenery. Their jade-like spirit and delicate appearance were all very handsome for a moment. Opposite the garden, there were rows of red walls and green tiles. The red walls were at least several zhang tall, and extended for an extremely long time. There were also many green tiles inside. One could not see the end of them with a single glance. In the middle of the red walls, there was a door that was several zhang tall and several zhang wide. It was dazzling in gold and jade. On top of it, there were 5 words written in gold and iron: Bronze Pillars Imperial Academy. The real culprit who killed Master Dao Shan was actually a scholar? Chapter 33-37. On the two sides of the gate, there were two strange beasts standing there majestically. One was a horse neighing at the sky while the other was a strange beast that looked like a radiant beast, but had a turtle shell on its back. Both beasts carried something on their backs. On the horse's back was a picture scroll while on the strange beast's back was a red brush. Through the majestic gate, there was a straight and wide road inside the Imperial Academy. At the end of the road was another Confucian cultivator statue that was several feet tall. This Confucian cultivator statue was dressed in a simple Confucian robe. His forehead was protruding and his hands were raised in front of his chest. His hands were also holding a scroll and a red brush. Around the statue of the Confucian cultivator, along with the sound of reading from the Imperial Academy, countless amounts of clear air were emitted from the surroundings. They swam in the air above the Imperial Academy like fishes, and revolved freely around the statue. Wave after wave of righteous energy spread from the Imperial Academy to the entire Bronze Pillar country. It was a peaceful and bright world. Unfortunately, this idyllic scene was suddenly shattered by the loud neigh of a horse. Not only did the orderly and righteous energy soar into the sky and rush towards the neigh of the horse, even the gazes of the students in the Imperial Academy were attracted by the neigh of the horse. When they looked over, what kind of scene was that? A radiance comparable to the bright moon fell from the sky. Within the radiance, there was a sacred Pegasus with its mane fluttering. On the Pegasus' back, there was a tall and skinny man standing solemnly. His face carried an aura of authority as he descended along with the Pegasus like a deity descending from the heavens. However, after the Pegasus, there was a tattered carriage that made everyone's eyes pop out. Even though the carriage was much brighter under the radiance of the Pegasus, everyone could tell that it was just an ordinary carriage. However, when their gazes turned to the carriage and saw Dao Shan sitting cross-legged with his head slightly drooping, they couldn't help but gasp. Everyone's heart was on alert. This descending from the sky was definitely not a good thing. It might be some kind of disaster. The students of the academy were not the only ones who attracted attention. On the way from the Seven Suns Temple to the academy, and even further away, the citizens of the Copper Pillar country who saw the heavenly steed's brilliance all rushed towards the academy. Everyone wanted to know who was on the heavenly horse, and who was the one who died on the tattered carriage. Moreover, Xiaohua rode the heavenly horse down from the sky. Before he even landed, there were already dozens of divine senses that swept out from the academy. They were very curious and even warned him. Xiaohua ignored the curious divine sense, but he immediately countered the warning divine sense with a soul stab. This Confucian cultivator's divine sense seemed to have borrowed from the Tao sect. This soul stab technique was the old ancestors' club. After a silent contest, some of the divine senses quickly retreated. It was obvious that they had other plans. However, some of the divine senses hesitated. When Xiaohua's nascent soul-level divine sense swept over, these divine senses retreated. At the same time, within the academy, there were some figures moving. Many scholars and literary masters had begun to move. Xiaohua's face was still as calm as water. He followed the heavenly horse and landed in front of the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy. Looking at the crowd coming from all directions, as well as the curious and surprised students, Xiaohua flew down from the heavenly horse and walked step by step towards the dazzling golden gate. As he walked, he said, "There is righteousness in heaven and earth. The academy is the place where righteousness gathers. People of the secular world can't distinguish the ghosts of the world. The students of the academy should be happy, read books, understand etiquette, know shame, and should keep themselves clean. Since there are students of the academy who knowingly broke the law and committed heinous crimes, this so-called Imperial Academy cannot escape. With such scum in the academy, what right does it have to educate the world? What right does it have to build a gate here? There is a saying in the world, if you want to be a whore, you still want to build a monument. How can there be such a good thing? Come. Let this Xiao smash this chastity monument square that looks like gold and jade on the outside and rotten on the inside." As Xiaohua's voice boomed like thunder, and as Xiaohua walked step by step towards the entrance of the Imperial Academy, the expressions of countless scholars changed drastically. They had never encountered a situation where someone dared to destroy the entrance of the Imperial Academy. Even if the entire Bronze Pillar country was defeated, no one dared to invade the Imperial Academy. This was because everyone knew that even though the Imperial Academy and the Copper Pillar country were inextricably linked, it was still where the Confucian cultivators resided. Offending the Imperial Academy was the same as offending the Confucian cultivators. In the vast hidden immortal continent, who would dare to offend the Confucian cultivators? Xiaohua's actions of slapping them in the face were truly embarrassing. Clang clang, numerous flying swords rang out. Pale green sword radiance rushed out from within the academy. Woo woo, numerous whimpering sounds of the wind rose. Pale white righteous qi also rushed out from within the academy. Their target was Xiaohua. They all wanted to stop Xiaohua from destroying the archway. Unfortunately, Xiaohua simply did not care about these. He was only a few feet away from the magnificent gate. With a raise of his hand, the wishful steel staff appeared in his hand again. Grow! Xiaohua roared. Destroy all evil in the world. Grow! Xiaohua roared for the second time. Shatter all hypocrisy in the world. Grow! Xiaohua roared for the third time. Clear all evil. With Xiaohua's thunderous roar, the wishful steel staff suddenly became more than 10 feet long. Under the angry wave of Xiaohua's wishful steel staff, it issued a buzzing sound and smashed the thousands of righteous qi in the surroundings, smashing towards the dazzling golden gate. How dare you! Several surprised and resentful voices could not help but shout out. The sword radiance and righteous qi that attacked Xiaohua hurriedly rushed towards the wishful steel staff. Rumble Xiaohua's Dao sect magical power was not at its peak, but the power of his physical body was unaffected. Even after being tempered by the origin of the earth, his strength was even more boundless. This wishful steel staff was now as heavy as 10,000 caddies. How could a simple sword radiance and righteous qi block it? After a few deafening sounds, Xiaohua's wishful steel staff smashed into the gate with a bang. The gate of the Bronze Pillar State Imperial Academy, that had stood for so many years, collapsed. The sound of this collapse was far worse than the previous sound of fighting, but this collapse was far from being comparable to a fight. The eyes of countless students showed pain. Countless students' hearts were bleeding. The perfection in the minds of countless students collapsed. Countless students' faces showed indignation. The face of the Bronze Pillar State Imperial Academy was actually easily defeated by Xiaohua when a group of Confucian cultivators were caught off guard. The wishful steel staff had indeed destroyed the gate. Immediately, Xiaohua did not stop. With a swing of the wishful steel staff, he destroyed the red wall and the strange beast statue near the gate, revealing a gap that connected to the academy. Then, with a wave of his hand, the Pegasus that stopped in the distance unfolded its wings of light and flew towards the gap. Who are you? What kind of bear's heart and leopard's guts did you eat? How dare you destroy the gate of my academy and break through the gate of my academy? Do you not put us, the thousands of Confucian scholars, in your eyes? A trembling voice came from within the academy. An old man dressed in Confucian robes stepped on a flying sword. Behind him, two middle-aged Confucian cultivators flew out of the academy in a flustered and exasperated manner. At the same time, several cultivators dressed in Confucian robes also flew out from several directions of the academy with ashen faces. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the wishful steel staff shrank to about 10 feet. He casually held it in his hand and smiled coldly. I am Xiaohua of the Dao sect. How dare you? Xiaohua, the old Confucian cultivator's face was clear, with a short gray beard under his chin. His square face could not hide his anger as he roared. Your Dao sect has long declined in the hidden immortal continent. We, the Confucian cultivators, have not cut the weeds and eliminated the roots. You actually dare to provoke the bottom line of our Confucian cultivators. Are you not afraid that we will eradicate your Dao sect? Ha ha ha! Xiaohua laughed as if he had seen the most ridiculous thing in the world. He pointed his hand behind him and said, Yes, yes, my Dao sect has long declined. Therefore every Dao sect disciple lives with his tail between his legs. Even the disciples who have never cultivated dare not make a loud noise for fear of attracting the attention of the Confucian cultivators. Look at the Dao sect behind Xiaohua. I don't know if you know him? This old man has never known anyone from the Dao sect. This Confucian cultivator could be considered reasonable. He didn't immediately take action to deal with Xiaohua. However, his cold and lifeless face clearly showed his disdain for Taoist disciples. Yes, you are high and mighty, educating the students in this academy and showing your majesty. How could you know this respectable old man? This old man had never read poetry, nor did he enlighten the people. However, he had been giving out porridge at Seven Suns Temple for decades. He would rather starve himself so that the child beggars around him could fill their stomachs. It was such an adorable old man that he had died so tragically, and was even said to have committed suicide. Suicide? Suicide, you see, you die like this for Xiaohua to see. Xiaohua said and pointed his finger at the ruins of the gatehouse. Your academy hides filth, and the gatehouse has been contaminated with filth. How can it be worthy of the remains of my Dao sect master? If this Xiaohua does not push down this gatehouse, how can Master Dao Shan face the statue of your Dao sect saint? How can he state his grievances? Hissed that Confucian cultivator was stunned and sucked in a breath of cold air. Finally, he looked at the people who had already surrounded him. He exchanged glances and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua, if you have any grievances, you can go to the Bronze Pillar State's government office to redress your grievances. Even if there are traitors in my academy who are involved in this matter, there should be a government office to investigate. You are only a Dao sect disciple, you have no right to interfere with the lives of others. You can't take revenge for this and push down the gatehouse of my academy. Moreover, this Taoist priest Dao Shan may be a kind person in your eyes, but that may not be the case in this old man's eyes. Although the Bronze Pillar State is not very rich, as long as one has a bit of strength, they will not starve, let alone become a beggar. It is because of people like Dao Shan who give them help that they don't need to pay, allowing them to reap without sowing, that they will have a lazy heart and not work, only knowing how to beg and be parasites. Chapter 33-38. Xiaohua was originally burning with rage, and wanted to vent his anger on the Imperial Academy. If this old man had attacked him the moment he came up, Xiaohua would not have shown mercy. Even if he did not take this old man's life, he would definitely not let this old man off. Although his cultivation was not the same as before, he had many methods available to him. It should be easy to deal with this old man. However, the old man did not directly attack. Even if the academy's gate was destroyed, he still suppressed his anger, and wanted to get to the bottom of the matter. Of course, putting aside the truth, just this attitude and self-restraint caused Xiaohua's anger to lessen. Xiaohua laughed coldly. Isn't the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy from the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy? Since it was your academy's students who did evil, can the officials of the Copper Pillar Imperial Academy make a decision for a lonely Taoist disciple? I don't know if they can make a decision or not. The old man's expression did not relax at all. He said word by word. But I know that if you don't put the law in your eyes and do whatever you want, what will happen to the world? Bullying the weak with the strong, getting greedy with greed, living in a precarious state? I forgot that you are a Taoist disciple. Naturally, you don't know what law is. You only know how to do whatever you want and not put the rules in your eyes. What you said is reasonable, but I also want to follow the law. Xiaohua had already thought it through in his anger. But there are people who use the law as a plaything and do illegal things with the hat of the law. Since the law cannot be controlled, then I will use the heavenly Tao and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. What right do you have to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? What right do you have to treat human lives like grass? Whether I have the right or not is not for you to judge. But I know that the people who treat human lives like grass are your academy's people. I will kill this academy's people on the spot, and redress the injustice of my Taoist disciple. Xiaohua retorted. I am too lazy to talk about the specifics. The officials have already caught up. You can investigate in detail. Now that I am going to send Master Dao Shan to the saint, please step aside. Xiaohua, you keep saying that it was my academy's student who did evil. What is this student's name? Where is your evidence? Where are the witnesses and material evidence? The old man was enraged. You didn't know what was right or wrong and you destroyed my academy's gate. How can my academy let you off the hook today? Ha ha ha, what a good give up. I never thought that I would be able to give up today. The wishful steel rod in Xiaohua's hand shook and he laughed. In the eyes of the government, what is the use of evidence? In the era where officials and bandits colluded, what evidence was there that they did not have? If I want to do something, why would I need to remove evidence? If I want to do something, I don't need any evidence. Then, Xiaohua pointed the wishful steel staff at the sky and shouted. This Xiao naturally knows who that person is, but if this Xiao says it, can you guarantee that he won't escape? Do you promise to hand him over to me? The academy is where the laws are. You Taoism cultivators don't have laws in your eyes, but the academy must have them. The old man said indifferently. Even if you reveal the identity of that evil thief, my academy will still hand him over to the authorities. It's not up to you to decide. Haha, in that case. Xiaohua's figure moved. Those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. This Xiao has already given your academy enough face, so it doesn't make a difference. Get out of the way. In front of this Xiao, if a person blocks me, I will kill a person. If a city blocks me, I will kill a city. If a country blocks me, I will kill a country. The old man's nose was crooked with anger. Xiaohua had smashed their gate. This was a naked slap in the face, and Xiaohua actually said that he was giving them face. Xiaohua, don't you think you are too arrogant? Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? The old man sneered. Don't you see that my academy's thousands of students are already waiting? Do you want to rely on your own courage to challenge the order of my academy? Ha ha ha, yes, my strength may be limited, but my laws are also limited. Xiaohua looked up to the sky and laughed. This laughter seemed to be too much today, which really made Xiaohua angry. The indignation in his heart was difficult to express. But I have righteousness in my heart that can soar to the 9 heavens. Even if there are thousands of people, I will still go. I am stronger than people like you who are bluffing, strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Before Xiaohua could finish his words, the old man's nose was already crooked with anger. After hearing these common words of Confucian cultivators, his body swayed, and his hand trembled slightly. Xiaohua, this old man knows that you have some Confucian cultivation, which is why I asked a few more questions. But you actually did not remember the grace of the Confucian cultivators in your heart. Did not cultivate your character according to the etiquette of the Confucian cultivators, and even repaid kindness with enmity, and even slandered my academy. Come, let this old man see what kind of cultivation you have. Don't talk about tolerance, don't talk about cultivation, everything is just delaying. Xiaohua sneered. Do you think this Xiao does not understand? Since you all are delaying, this Xiao can also delay. You and I are the same. You the old man was so angry that his beard was trembling. At this moment, a loud sound like a drum came from the side of the academy. A well-built cultivator holding a heavenly halberd in his hand flew over with a dozen youths, stepping on balls of clear light. Professor Hu, the entrance of my Imperial Academy has been smashed by someone. If you still have the heart, then why are you being so long-winded? Look at your side. What have you taught these brats to become? Each of them is listless and smacking their lips like slugs. Where is the aura of an academy? No wonder they are being bullied to the nose. Martial cultivator? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes, thinking about what Fujiwen said at the auction, and looked at the man with interest. Vital energy surged around the muscular man, and an indescribable valiance emanated from the muscles on his arms. The heavenly halberd that was thicker than a fist made a whimpering sound as the muscular man flew, and it was quite frightening. The murderous intent in the muscular man's eyes was even more obvious. Xiaohua looked on coldly, and suddenly his eyebrows twitched. He glanced in the direction of the academy, and his slightly worried heart relaxed. The wishful staff in his hand also swayed a few times. Professor Dong, my Imperial Academy has always been a place of virtue. This Taoist cultivator dares to provoke us, and look at the tragic death of the old man in the carriage. There must be something fishy going on. If I don't ask clearly, how can I act? Professor Hu's Confucian robe fluttered without wind, and his anger from before was slightly restrained. Moreover, the culprit who humiliated my academy and destroyed my sect is right in front of me. How can I let him escape? Noisy! Professor Dong flew closer, and his leopard eyes looked fiercely at Xiaohua, and then looked at the gate that was destroyed by Xiaohua. He shouted to stop Professor Hu's words, and pointed at Xiaohua. "You little brat, let me see what you are capable of. How dare you pluck the fur from the tiger's mouth?" As he spoke, the so-called Professor Dong waved his thick left arm, and there was a fist-sized ring on his black furry arm. Roar! A tiger's roar suddenly sounded, and a gust of wind rolled up from where Professor Dong was standing. A 20 feet long, a few feet tall ferocious tiger appeared out of thin air, and demon clouds appeared between its four paws, and it pounced toward Xiaohua. Xiaohua looked on quietly, as if he was stunned, and did not see that the hungry tiger was already in front of him. Professor Hu, who was not far away, was reprimanded by Professor Dong, and he simply ignored it. He frowned slightly, and waved his hand. A Confucian scholar from afar hurriedly flew over, and Professor Hu whispered a few instructions. That Confucian scholar hurriedly flew down, and headed towards the 100 constables in the distance. Just as Professor Hu finished his instructions, Professor Dong's tiger pet pounced in front of Xiaohua without any hindrance. The demonic wind was rampant, and it swept up dozens of feet around Xiaohua. Its bloody mouth emitted a foul stench, and it bit towards Xiaohua's upper body. It was as if it could bite Xiaohua in half in the blink of an eye. While everyone was watching, Professor Dong suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. However, in front of so many Confucian scholars, he could not shrink back, so he urged his body to rush over with the halberd in his hand. Evil creature. At this time, Xiaohua seemed to have recovered, and with a light shout, his whole body was like a fallen leaf blown by the wind, leisurely floating, and extremely cleverly dodging the claws and bloody mouth of the hungry tiger. Even at the moment when his body missed, he casually swung the staff in his hand at the tiger's head. Woo! The sound of the wind was followed by a paw sound. Hungry tiger was hit by the staff, and blood burst out. He did not even have the chance to scream, and fell from the sky. Tabby cat. After hungry tiger, Professor Dong's figure naturally followed. He was already on the alert, but he never expected that hungry tiger would be killed by Xiaohua's staff before he could even lift his sky piercer. Xiaohua's attack was too ruthless, so ruthless that he found it hard to believe. So how could he bear it? After a sorrowful cry, a pale golden brilliance flashed around his body, and the halberd turned into thousands of golden lights, one by one, piercing towards Xiaohua from all directions. Haha, this is my Dao Sex method. You actually dare to make a fool of yourself in front of this old man. Xiaohua laughed, and the staff grew longer. Under the wave, 10,000 methods were destroyed, and the shadow of the halberd like mountains and waves was defeated. It rushed toward Xiaohua and turned into a huge halberd. Boom! There was another loud sound, and countless students and constables could not help but cover their ears. The expression on their faces was numb with shock and a trace of pain. Looking at Professor Dong's halberd, the moment it touched the staff, it had been broken into 2 pieces. Professor Dong's bones were soft, and his muscles were numb. He could not control his body and fell from the sky in an extremely embarrassing manner. What made Professor Dong feel ashamed was that although his body was weak as if struck by lightning, the true energy in his chest was still surging. Just as he was about to urge his true energy to fly out of thin air, there was a sharp pain in his mind, and he could not help but groan in a low voice. He held his head with his hands, and it was difficult for him to raise his true energy, and he quickly fell to the ground. Looking at the increasingly swollen green bricks and the gray ground clearly visible, Professor Dong's face could not help but turn red. Chapter 33-39. You only have the strength of a 2nd or 3rd level elemental force, and you dare to be arrogant in front of me. Not only are you not afraid of losing face as a Confucian cultivator, you are also not afraid of losing your tongue? Xiaohua's cold sarcasm entered Professor Dong's ears, and made Professor Hu gasp again. He looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. Yes, how could Professor Hu not know Professor Dong's strength? He was a famous fierce man in the Imperial Academy, and had a very powerful tiger pet. Normal Confucian cultivators would find it difficult to deal with him. However, such a fierce man was not even a match for Xiaohua. Did that mean that Xiaohua had the strength of a 4th or 5th level elemental force? However, On second thought, Professor Dong came to a realization. Xiao Hua's big stick technique was a body cultivator's Dao. He was truly the nemesis of Professor Dong. Especially when Xiao Hua killed Hungry Tiger with his footwork and figure. It was clearly a profound martial art. However, Professor Dong's methods were not like this. Professor who did not understand why he did not have a backup plan. Get out of my way. I can't be bothered with you accomplices. I still have to go to the Imperial Academy to find the real culprit. Xiao Hua waved his hand and the Pegasus moved again, following behind Xiao Hua. That was just a warning. If you don't respect yourselves, it won't be your spiritual pets that die next time. I don't mind staining my hands with blood, and using your blood as a sacrifice to my Taoist disciples. I will use your lives to make Master Daoshan close his eyes. Professor Hu heard Xiao Hua's words, and looked behind the Pegasus. On the broken carriage, Daoshan's head drooped and his eyes were frozen with fear and disbelief. He sighed in his heart, and rushed to Xiao Hua on his flying sword. For the first time, he clasped his hands and said, Xiao Hua, you can seek justice for your Taoist disciples. I also want to seek peace for my Confucian disciples. You have the courage to face thousands of people, and I also have the courage to break and not bend. Come, don't hold back. If you want to enter the Imperial Academy, you have to run over me. Xiao Hua laughed coldly and waved the wishful stick in his hand. He shouted, So what if I run over you? Today, I will trample all over your Imperial Academy and run over all your Confucian cultivators. I will not rest until I find the culprit. Professor Hu saw that Xiao Hua was not moved by his words at all. He looked around the academy and saw that it was already crowded. Not only were the students of the Imperial Academy waiting eagerly, even the villagers were crowding over. Their gazes were either filled with envy, eagerness, astonishment, or curiosity. If this was not the Imperial Academy, everyone would have cheered loudly. All of you can come at me together. Xiao Hua coldly looked at Professor Dong, and the two people behind him. You are not my opponent. No need, Professor Hu shook his head slightly. Although you were able to defeat Dong Fei in one move, your strength is only at the second or third level of origin power. If all of us were to gang up on you, wouldn't we be bullying you with numbers? Up to you, Xiao Hua laughed coldly. If you don't want to bully me with numbers, why did you set up a formation in the Imperial Academy? Professor Hu turned his head to look at the main road of the academy. Indeed, there were hundreds of thousands of students standing in an orderly manner. Each of them was holding a brush and ink in their hands, or holding a scroll in their hands. They looked like they were ready for battle. He smiled bitterly and said, It is better to die in glory than to live in dishonor. Immortal Xiao has forced my Imperial Academy into a dead end. Every one of us is a member of the Imperial Academy. At this time, we naturally have to fight with our lives. 1 person is to kill, 100 people is to kill, 1,000 people is to kill. Xiao Hua waved the wishful stick in his hand and shouted, Then I will kill you first. Professor Hu, be careful. The 2 Confucian cultivators at the side hurriedly reminded Xiao Hua when they saw how fierce he was. The wishful stick was disrupting the surrounding noble spirit. The sword qi is in my chest, and the righteous spirit is in the heavens and earth. I sacrifice my body to the heavens and earth, and I am willing to use the noble spirit to shake the domain. Professor Hu let out a sorrowful cry. The sword qi around his body shone brightly. Thousands of noble spirit poured down like the Milky Way, and rushed into Professor Hu's body. Then, it turned into a sword qi river and rushed towards Xiao Hua. It was the famous noble spirit river of the Confucian cultivators. Come on! Xiao Hua shouted. Without hesitation, he waved the wishful stick and rushed into the sword qi river. He said loudly, I am a pillar of the Tao sect. I am arrogant in the long river. Your noble spirit and sword qi river are not as long as my stick. The flying swords were like a river. It seemed that every wave in the surging river was a murderous sword intent. It seemed that every trace of sword light could pierce Xiao Hua. This vision suddenly made everyone's eyes flash with hope. Whether it was the secular people or the students of the academy, they all longed for this river-like flying swords to kill Xiao Hua, who had provoked the academy, and they did not doubt that Professor Hu had such means. Even though this river of flying swords was continuous and unending, and it was mixed with a righteous aura and possessed unrivaled courage. But in the eyes of a Taoist sect cultivator like Xiaohua who'd witnessed the might of the sword transformation technique since a long time ago, it was truly insufficient. If Xiaohua's magical power was still there, he was afraid that he would not have to pay attention to this sword qi river. He could have used the killing spirit Yuan light to instantly take Professor Hu's life. Or he could have used the thunder attracting technique. Thunder flow against the sword qi river. Let's see who was stronger. Unfortunately, at this time, Xiaohua could not use his Buddhist cultivation. He did not dare to reveal his Devil Realm cultivation method. The soul cultivation method was slightly weaker, so he could only use the wishful steel staff. Although there was only one wishful steel staff, Xiaohua's hands danced. Balls of golden light flashed, like a pillar between heaven and earth that could not fall. No matter how many flying swords rushed over, they were all shattered one by one, turning into fireflies that disappeared in the wind. How is this possible? While everyone was shocked, Professor Hu was also astonished. My noble spirit river is condensed from noble spirit. Can ordinary iron actually hit it? Xiaohua's hand. Is it an immortal weapon? Yes, Professor Hu had only seen flying swords blocked by weapons. He had never seen any weapon from the hidden immortal continent that could block the noble spirit. Moreover, Xiaohua's weapon did not have any magical power fluctuations. It seemed that he did not use any Taoist technique at all. Professor Hu was surprised. His momentum was weak, and his noble spirit was also slack. At this moment, Xiaohua's Taoist robe flew again and he roared, "Eat this Xiao's staff." As he spoke, the wishful steel staff suddenly lengthened. Although Xiaohua did not show any dharmakaya, the wishful steel staff fell like a mountain, shrouding the area around Professor Hu. The great spirit that was flowing in the air immediately solidified. In the eyes of everyone, Xiaohua was no different from a god. Not good. Facing the wishful steel staff, Professor Hu's heart trembled. He hurriedly raised his hands, and dozens of sword lights flew out from his hands, turning into a sword net, trying to block the wishful steel staff. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of golden qi, which also turned into a small sword, catching up with the sword net first. His golden qi gathering. Xiaohua did not understand the power of this small golden sword. He only felt that this small sword vaguely contained a kind of obscure fluctuation, which was more powerful than the sword cultivator's small sword or Mo Jianli's small sword. However, the students of the nearby college were all people who knew what was good for them. Someone had already cried out in surprise, "Professor Hu has cultivated to the realm of golden qi gathering." Golden qi gathering? When Xiaohua heard this, he immediately thought of the so-called 5 qi gathering. He unconsciously sneered. "I don't care what golden qi gathering is. Would qi gathering? Under my Tao sex magic, everything is illusory." Wu the wishful steel staff did not slack off. Ka-pa-pa, dozens of crisp sounds were heard, and the sword net was smashed into pieces. Kung, the sound of the sword resounded through the sky. The small sword of golden qi gathering was still defeated under the force of the wishful steel staff. Although it was extremely dim by Xiaohua's attack, it was still able to escape from the wishful steel staff, and rushed into Professor Hu's mouth. Professor Hu's face was ashen, and he could hardly stand still in the air. In particular, the wishful steel staff fell like a mountain, and he had already smelled the breath of death. Seeing that the shadow of the wishful steel staff had already shrouded him, Professor Hu suddenly felt the true qi in his chest boiling, and a long-lost heroic spirit rushed into his heart. Although his body was like a withered branch swaying in the wind, his eyes were like an awl, looking straight at the falling wishful steel staff. He smiled and said, "In my life there is a beginning and an end. What joy is there in life? What fear is there in death? Grandma, I didn't want to kill you at all. Aren't you making me lose face by yelling like this?" Xiaohua even had to find definite evidence to kill Wu Qian. How could he kill Professor Hu for no reason now? At this time, when he heard Professor Hu's words, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How could others understand Xiaohua's thoughts? The two Confucian cultivators next to Professor Hu were shocked, and were about to urge their true qi to save him. At this time, a clear voice sounded without the slightest bit of smoke and fire. "Xiaohua, Since you don't have the intention to kill, why are you so aggressive? This voice seemed to be in his ear, but if he listened carefully, it seemed to be in his heart, as if he was talking to himself. Xiaohua was shocked and unconsciously released his divine sense, shouting, "Who is it?" Who knew that there was no abnormality in the place where the divine sense passed, and the others didn't feel anything. Even Professor, who was still facing death. How could Xiaohua not know that he had met a master? "Hey, who said that I don't have the intention to kill?" Xiaohua sneered and said, "Today, I will let you see the thunderous means of my Dao sect." With that, the wishful steel staff, which had been somewhat stagnant, once again slammed down with the sound of wind and thunder. In this gap, everyone seemed to understand something, and they all exclaimed, as if they were worried about the fate of Professor Hu. The voice sighed, and Xiaohua suddenly felt that there was a quagmire under his wishful steel staff. Although there was no great force, the seemingly endless winding force wrapped around the wishful steel staff. Looking at the other side of the college, a tall and thin figure similar to Xiaohua, wearing a blue robe, slowly flew over. Chapter 3340. When Xiaohua saw the person appear, his divine sense immediately swept over again. Who would have thought that it was exactly the same as before? He couldn't see the person's shadow at all. Xiaohua was surprised and on guard. This Confucian cultivator was the first cultivator he had seen since he came to the hidden immortal continent, that he couldn't even detect with his divine sense. However, when Xiaohua squinted his eyes and saw the person clearly, the surprise in his heart became even stronger, because the person's clothes were not only a rare light blue Confucian robe, but his hair was also strange. It was not the bun of Confucian and Tao cultivators, nor was it the bald head of a Buddhist monk. Instead, it was the kind of hair that was 3 inches long. Not only did it cover the forehead, but it also covered most of the eyebrows, almost close to the eyes. What made Xiaohua most uncomfortable was that the person's skin was white, his appearance was extremely handsome, and he had a childish baby face, far younger than the average Confucian scholar. In particular, his eyes were narrow and looked very small, but when he looked around, his sharp gaze was like a sword, and his lacquered eyes were like stars. Such a handsome figure made the conceited Xiaohua feel threatened. What kind of appearance did he have in the eyes of a group of female cultivators? Xiaohua didn't know how the person blocked his wishful steel staff, but he really didn't have the intention to kill Professor Hu. At this time, he took advantage of the situation and shrank the wishful steel staff to a length of a few feet. He waved it in front of his eyes and pointed it forward, coldly saying, "Where did this little boy come from? When the adults are talking, what right do you have to speak?" "Greetings, Minister." Just as Xiaohua's voice fell, the group of Confucian cultivators and students all bowed and shouted in unison. Their voices were obviously much louder than usual. It was so noisy that Xiaohua's earwax fell a lot. Xiaohua sneered. The wishful steel staff in his hand retracted and resentfully carried it on his shoulder. He put a finger into his ear and said to himself, "It's just a stinky bag, what's the use? I'll beat you to death in a while, and let you show off." Although the tone was full of threat, Xiaohua himself may not be able to hear the jealousy in the words. "Get up." The judge flew closer. His starry eyes landed on Dao Shan's corpse, and then looked at the collapsed gatehouse. He waved his hand and said, "What happened? Why are the Dao sect's fellow immortals so angry?" Seeing that this judge was far from being as delicate as he looked, seeing that he didn't fly into a rage when the gatehouse was destroyed, and instead asked questions without the slightest bit of anger, Xiaohua sighed in his heart. He knew that he wouldn't be able to fight today. However, he didn't pay any attention to this judge. He glanced at him and didn't say anything. Xiaohua had already told him about Master Dao Shan's matter once, so there was no reason for him to waste his saliva again. Honorable Judge Professor, who hurriedly flew to the front and bowed respectfully. He recounted what Xiaohua said and what he did. Finally, he pointed to the constables on the ground and said, "I have already sent Professor Sun down to ask in detail. Now we have the answer." The judge nodded and swept his gaze. The so-called Professor Sun, who was ordered to go down, hurriedly flew up and was about to report in a low voice. Who knew that the judge raised his hand and said, "Sun Xian, the Imperial Academy is the backbone of the Bronze Pillar Nation. We have always been the role model of righteousness. Every word and action of ours has to face the heavens and the earth. It's better to speak louder so that everyone can hear clearly and understand. Yes, Honorable Judge, I understand. Sun Xian nodded and said loudly, I am Sun Xian of the Imperial Academy. I have just asked the constables of the Yamen. Just today, in the Seven Suns Temple at Shilua Ridge, 21 Taoists died for unknown reasons. Constable Wuxian received the news and brought Coroner Zhuahong and 20 other constables to the Seven Suns Temple. After the coroner's investigation, other than Dao Shan, there were 20 other Taoists. Their hands were all strangling their own necks. The finger marks on their necks were exactly the same as their own fingers. There were no other fatal injuries. The other constables checked the surroundings of the Seven Suns Temple and did not find any traces of outsiders entering the Seven Suns Temple. Furthermore, no one heard any special sounds from the Seven Suns Temple last night. Therefore, Constable Wu Qian ruled out the possibility of homicide. His initial guess was that the Seven Suns Temple was invaded by evil spirits during the night of the Zhongyuan festival. These 21 Taoists were possessed by evil spirits and strangled themselves to death. When Constable Wu Qian arrived at the Seven Suns Temple, other than the corpses of the 21 Taoists, there were 4 other Taoists and a Confucian scholar. However, Constable Wu Qian did not see any traces of the 5 of them spending the night at the Seven Suns Temple. Furthermore, from what the 5 of them said, they participated in the auction at the Zhaixing Lu of the Bright Moon Lane. Therefore, the 5 of them were also ruled out as suspects. At this point, Sun Xian looked at Xiaohua again. He hesitated slightly before continuing. Just as Constable Wu Qian was about to report this matter to the magistrate and ask the authorities to investigate again, Xiaohua of this Dao sect suddenly descended from the sky and had a verbal conflict with Constable Wu Qian. However, Constable Wu Qian did not mind. He only explained his judgment and the situation at the Seven Suns Temple to Xiaohua. At that time, Xiaohua did not say anything and left with the 4 Taoists and the Confucian scholar. Constable Wu Qian originally wanted to keep the 6 of them. However, considering that the 6 of them were indeed at the Zhaixing Lu when Dao Shan died, and this matter had already been confirmed by the Zhaixing Lu, he did not stop them. He only ordered his subordinates to hurry back to the prefectural magistrate to report this matter, while he stayed in the Seven Suns Temple to prevent any abnormalities from happening. In just half a meal's time, Xiaohua returned with a stone pillar that was over 100 feet tall in his hand. Not only did he kill Constable Wu Qian, Coroner Zhuahong, Constables Wang Tingyue, Zhang Chang, and Su Hongxi, he even destroyed the entire murder scene at the Seven Suns Temple. Dao Shan's corpse was brought here by him, and the corpses of the other 20 Taoists were buried in the Seven Suns Temple. Currently, the main hall of the Seven Suns Temple had been destroyed and a blood stele that was about a foot tall stood there. On it was written, "This is the land of the Taoists. Those who are not good should not enter. Otherwise, kill without mercy. Xiaohua of the Taoists." After he finished speaking, Sun Xian looked at the institute judge and said seriously, "This is what I heard from the officials. I dare not add another word to it. I hope the institute judge can retract it." The institute judge waved his hand and said plainly, "I understand. You may leave." After Sun Xian moved to the side, the institute judge looked at Xiaohua and said, "Fellow immortal Xiao, did you hear it clearly?" Xiaohua laughed coldly. "It's not like I don't have ears. How can I not hear it clearly?" "What was the reason for you to return and kill?" the institute judge asked curiously. "Could it be that you have found out something in this half a meal's time? Since you have found out something, you should have reported it to the prefectural magistrate. Why did you kill him privately?" "Who are you?" Xiaohua retorted. "I have told you the truth. Can you redress the grievances of the Taoists? Can you hand over the real culprit hidden in the academy to me? I am the institute judge of the Imperial Academy, Du Ming. My courtesy name is Shanjun. You can call me Professor Du." The institute judge replied word by word. "If you have solid evidence that can convince me, and even the students and Confucian scholars present, I can naturally arrest anyone in the academy and hand them over to the officials. However, you are not an official and cannot replace the laws of the Bronze Pillar country. Therefore, I cannot hand that person over to you. Xiaohua looked at Du Shan's handsome face, and suddenly thought of Zhang Qingxiao. He really doubted that there was anyone in the human race who could give birth to such a child. When he heard Du Shanjun's question, he replied plainly, Professor Du. Professor Du. All right, since you claim to be a professor and not an institute judge, then I will give you face. Previously, I have already promised in front of Master Daoshan and the 20 Taoists that I will personally kill the real culprit. Now that you have promised, I will believe you this time. I hope you will not disappoint me. Thank you for your trust, fellow immortal Xiao. Professor Du straightened his back and pointed to the surroundings. There are no less than 1,000 people in front of the academy. There are students of the Imperial Academy, people from the officials, and most of them are ordinary citizens. The teacher once said, guarding against the mouths of the people is more important than guarding against the river. When the river collapses, many people will be hurt, and so will the people. As long as you tell the truth, even if I wanted to cover up my embarrassment, I would still have to consider the mouths of the crowd. Even if I don't care about my reputation, the Imperial Academy still cares about our reputation. We, the Confucian cultivators, still care about our reputation. All right. Before Xiaohua could open his mouth, hundreds of women and girls screamed at the same time. Xiaohua didn't know when they had gathered under Professor Dou's body. Each and every one of them had a dazed look in their eyes, as if Professor Dou could make them take off their pants with just a smile. Xiaohua looked at him in annoyance and said, This Xiao just came to Copper Pillar Country last night, and hung out at Seven Suns Monastery in Shiluo Mountain Range. Because this Xiao wanted to participate in Zhai Xinglu's auction. I only saw Great Master Daoshan at Seven Suns Monastery. I immediately brought a few Taoists to Bright Moon Lane. When I returned to the Seven Suns Temple this morning, the tragedy had already happened. Before I could ask how Master Daoshan died, Wu Qian said that Master Daoshan and the rest strangled themselves to death. Who would believe such a ridiculous conclusion? Furthermore, Master Daoshan and the rest strangled themselves to death. They had hands. But what about the horses that I brought with me? Did they also use their hooves to strangle themselves to death? Boom! The group of students did not speak, but the villagers roared with laughter. Yes, the villagers knew more about livestock than the students. Not to mention that the hooves of the horses could not be used as hands. Even if they had hands, the neck of the horses was so big that it was impossible for them to be strangled to death. I already felt that Wu Qian's words were strange, but I still chose to believe it. Xiaohua said innocently. That was why I wanted to leave with the few Taoists. When I left the Seven Suns Temple, I met someone who knew about it. Chapter 3341. Who is this person? Why didn't Immortal Xiao bring him along? Professor Dou frowned and asked. Why should I bring him along? So that you can silence him? Xiaohua laughed coldly. This person didn't say much, he only said that he saw someone enter the Seven Suns Temple in the dark, and he vaguely saw Wu Qian nearby. You returned to kill Wu Qian just based on this? Professor Dou was even more dissatisfied. Xiaohua laughed coldly again. Do you think I'm that kind of person? If that's the case, I should have searched Wu Qian's soul when I saw him. Search Wu Qian's soul? You searched Wu Qian's soul? Professor Dou's expression changed. That's right, if I didn't search Wu Qian's soul, how would I know that he knowingly broke the law and brought a few constables to the Seven Suns Temple? If I didn't search Wu Qian's soul, how would I know that he broke the law and accepted Jiang Wenhao's bribe to give the West Conch Ridge to the Jiang family? If I didn't search Wu Qian's soul, how would I kill Wu Qian, Zhuahong, Wang Tingyue, Zhang Chang and Su Hongxi? Why didn't I kill the other constables at the Seven Suns Temple? If I didn't search Wu Qian's soul, how would I dare to bring Master Daoshan's corpse to the Bronze Pillar Academy? Xiaohua's every word shook the surroundings. Every word caused the faces of the students to change. After he finished speaking, not to mention the hundreds of villagers who were stirred up, even the students looked as if they were about to die. That's right, Xiaohua was a Taoist disciple, and a weakling in the hidden immortal continent. If he didn't have such solid evidence, how would he dare to provoke the Confucian Academy? If he didn't know the filth within, How would he dare to bring Master Dao Shan's corpse to the Imperial Academy? But if what Xiao Hua said was true, this would be a huge humiliation to the Bronze Pillar Imperial Academy. Not only would the academy be destroyed by Xiao Hua for nothing, but its countless years of reputation would also be destroyed. Professor Dou sighed and shook his head. Immortal Xiao, you are too reckless. Even if Wu Qian and the rest are guilty, the Bronze Pillar country's magistrate should be the judge. You have no right to disregard human life. You should report it to the government. Especially, who knows if you searched Wu Qian's soul? Who knows if you're telling the truth? We don't have the testimony of Wu Qian, and the others either. You have no evidence, so how can this old man and the others say anything? Haha, Bronze Pillar State Magistrate? What a big government. Xiao Hua laughed heartily. Not just the governor of the Copper Pillar State. Even if it's the Copper Pillar State, even if it's the Yu Province, even if it's the entire hidden immortal continent, none of them are worthy of this Zhao's report. Perhaps you have the right to be arrogant. Professor Dou didn't mention the shortcomings of the Taoist sections. Instead, he explained, however, the Seven Suns Temple is in my Bronze Pillar Nation. Wu Qian is also a subordinate of the Bronze Pillar Nation's magistrate. This matter has to go through the magistrate. Dou Shanjun, Xiao Hua sneered. This Xiao thinks highly of you and has already given you face by telling you the cause of the matter, as well as the name of the real culprit. Why are you not going to arrest Jiang Wenhao, but are here to argue with this Xiao about Wu Qian's death? Could it be that you want to arrest this Xiao and bring him to justice? Jiang Wenhao is the descendant of a Confucian family in the Bronze Pillar Nation. He is also a well-known figure in the Imperial Academy. Even I have heard of him. Professor Dou replied plainly. Therefore, you don't have to worry. The monk can run away, but the temple can't at this point. Professor Dou grinned and mocked himself. This Dou's words are blasphemous to the Buddhist sections. I hope that the eminent monks of the Buddhist sects will not take it to heart. While another group of women exclaimed. They were obviously very satisfied with Dou Shanjun's modesty. If you have something to say it quickly. Don't pretend to be profound. Xiao Hua was even more unhappy as he said coldly. Professor Dou didn't mind and smiled. What I mean is that Immortal Xiao doesn't have to worry about Jiang Wenhao escaping. Even if he escapes, there is still the Jiang family. If he really did such evil deeds, not to mention me, even the Imperial Academy will not let the Jiang family off. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and praised. Just based on what you said, I will temporarily let go of the Imperial Academy's teacher statue. Professor Dou's face turned slightly cold when he heard this. He said with conviction, I will definitely give you an answer regarding Jiang Wenhao. But what about the Imperial Academy's gate? How are you going to give me and the Imperial Academy an answer? Is the dean the dean? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Professor Dou was stunned and replied casually, Of course not. If you are not the dean, why should I give you an answer? Xiao Hua laughed. After the Jiang Wenhao incident, you can consider this matter again. Professor Dou laughed coldly. I would like to see how you are going to give the Imperial Academy an answer, how you are going to give the Confucian cultivators an answer. After he finished speaking, Dou Shanjun raised his voice and asked, Where is Jiang Wenhao? When Xiao Hua mentioned Jiang Wenhao, there were already scholars in the Imperial Academy who sent out students to look for him. Xiao Hua had already released his soul awareness and locked on to this person. Just as Xiao Hua expected, when Jiang Wenhao heard that the Imperial Academy's gate was smashed and that Xiao Hua had brought Dao Shan's corpse to look for him, he panicked and ran out of the Imperial Academy in a hurry. However, he only left for a short while before he turned back. After he turned back, his expression was much calmer. Obviously, it was as Professor Dou said. Even if Jiang Wenhao ran away, the Jiang family of the Copper Pillar Nation would not be able to escape. Instead of panicking, it was better to face it calmly. Xiao Hua saw how panicked Jiang Wenhao was, and was already confident. Therefore, he was not worried that he would not be able to give the Confucian cultivators and the Imperial Academy an answer. Not long after, Jiang Wenhao came in a hurry with a scholar. Looking at the handsome man whom he had already seen at the academy last night, Xiao Hua despised him from the bottom of his heart. What a waste of such a good appearance. That's right, this Jiang Wenhao was the scholar that Xiaohua had seen before. The scholar that was proficient in Qi Wenzhong. The scholar that used a brush to add the finishing touches to the lotus lantern. Even at this moment, the two whiskers at the corners of the scholar's mouth were still slightly curled up. Those seemingly ordinary eyes were still deep and profound. Although flying in the air and standing next to Professor Dou somewhat obscured his elegance, it seemed that the two of them complemented each other, making them even brighter for a moment. Student greets Dean Dou. Jiang Wenhao bowed to Dou Shanjun and said respectfully. Professor Dou smiled and waved his hand. Stand up. Do you know the reason why I asked you to come here today? Yes, I have already heard about it. Jiang Wenhao nodded and looked at Xiaohua. This Taoist senior may have misunderstood. I have some dealings with Wuxia from the government. However, because of family matters, it did not involve any personal relationship. Furthermore, the Seven Sons Temple in Shilua Ridge is a property of the Taoist sect. As a Confucian cultivator, how could I go there? As for what Senior Xiao said about murdering old man Daoshan and occupying the property of Shilua Ridge, that is even more false. My Jiang family is also a Confucian family and is famous in the Bronze Pillar country. How could I do such a thing? After saying that, Jiang Wenhao turned to Professor Dou and said, Dean, Senior Xiao may have been too angry. This student doesn't dare to blame this senior. As for what is right and wrong, I hope Dean can make the decision and clear my name. Where were you last night? Professor Dou asked directly. This Jiang Wenhao was terrified and hurriedly bowed. I am in the wrong. Please punish me. Emph. Professor Dou's face turned cold and said in a low voice, If you have committed such a crime, how can I forgive you? Jiang Wenhao hurriedly smiled and said, Even if you give me 10 times the courage, I would not dare to do such a bad thing. Last night, At this point, Jiang Wenhao clenched his teeth as if he was going to throw caution to the wind. He said in a low voice, Last night, after I added the finishing touch to the lotus lantern, I went to the Red Chamber with 3 to 5 friends. Red House? Professor Dou frowned and immediately understood. Although his face showed embarrassment, he was obviously relieved. He shouted, Tell me, who did you go with? Yes, Jiang Wenhao's face was flushed red as he said a few names. Following Jiang Wenhao's voice, a few young students also flew into the air from within the academy, their faces abnormally red with embarrassment. Professor Dou snorted and said, You all can leave. From today onwards, don't do your homework. Wait until this matter is over and I punish you. Yes, Jiang Wenhao and the others bowed and were about to leave. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and coldly looked at Jiang Wenhao's performance. Only now did he open his mouth and said, Wait, Jiang Wenhao, let me ask you. Do you know Kong Lifeng, Quan Chong, Ji Miao, and Lu Wujia? Jiang Wenhao, who was already about to leave, clearly trembled. But when he turned his head, his face was filled with surprise and bewilderment. He said to Xiaohua, Senior Xiao, this student naturally knows these 4 people. They are the martial masters that I temporarily hired a few days ago for the Jiang family's matter. Furthermore, last night, the student had terminated his employment with them. Oh, that's right, I also have the contract that was drawn up 2 months ago. If Senior does not believe me, I can let the dean take a look. Jiang Wenhao emphasized the words temporarily hired and terminated my employment very clearly. Then he took out a piece of paper from his bosom and handed it to Professor Dou. Taking advantage of the time when Professor Dou opened the contract, Jiang Wenhao respectfully said to Xiaohua, Senior Xiao, Daoshan's death and the tragedy at Seven Sons Monastery made me feel grief and indignation. However, even if the real culprits were Kong Lifeng, Quan Chong, Ji Miao, and Lu Wujia, it has nothing to do with me. Oh, let's take a step back. Even if I didn't coincidentally terminate my contract with these 4 martial masters yesterday, it is still their own actions and has nothing to do with me. If Senior wants to find someone, you should find them. Chapter 3342. Xiaohua could not be bothered to talk to this beast in human face. He ignored Jiang Wenhao's humility and waited quietly for Dou Shanjun to finish reading the contract. As expected, Professor Dou waved the contract in his hand and said calmly, Immortal Xiao, I have finished reading the contract and did not miss a single word. The 4 people that you mentioned have indeed terminated their employment with Jiang Wenhao. Just as Jiang Wenhao said. Even if they killed the 21 people from the Seven Sons Temple, it had nothing to do with Jiang Wenhao. The most important thing is that Jiang Wenhao was not at the Seven Sons Temple last night, but at the Red Spectre House. If you do not believe me, I will send someone to call the manager of the Red Spectre House over and ask him to testify. No need. Xiaohua coldly glanced at the seemingly innocent Jiang Wenhao and pointed at the wishful staff in his hand. Professor Dou, this Xiao will ask you one last time. Can you hand this guy over to this Xiao? Impossible. Dou Shanjun took a step forward and stood in front of Jiang Wenhao. He replied calmly, Jiang Wenhao is a student of the Imperial Academy. I cannot hand him over to you just because of a false accusation. Now that Jiang Wenhao has proven his innocence, I naturally have the obligation to protect his safety. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua laughed and pointed at the statue of the teacher in the distance. Since you all want to protect him, don't blame me for being ruthless. I will bring the remains of Master Dao Shan and kill my way to the statue of the saint. I will ask him personally. How did he educate the students of the Imperial Academy, and how he will give me a satisfactory answer. Although Xiaohua looked confident, he was a little worried. Since Dou Shanjun was a judge of the Imperial Academy, his strength was at least at the level of a scholar, which was equivalent to a level 3 or level 4 elemental energy. It was similar to the Dadaist sect's advanced Aurus Core stage or nascent soul stage. Now that Xiaohua lacked methods, his overall strength was inferior to Dou Shanjun. Xiaohua did not have the confidence to win against Professor Dou. At this moment, Professor Dou furrowed his brows and coldly said, Xiaohua, I respect you for daring to challenge the Imperial Academy over the death of an old man. However, this does not mean that the Imperial Academy can be bullied by anyone. The sequence of events has already been made clear. This matter has nothing to do with the Imperial Academy. If you continue to cause trouble like this, you're really doing it on purpose. I can't help but suspect your motives. Furthermore, I will not allow you to barge into the Imperial Academy again. It doesn't matter if you doubt me or not. This Xiao's motive is the same as the truth of this tragedy. There is only one reason. All the flowery words and all the excuses will not be able to cover up the truth. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the Pegasus let out a long neigh. It spread its wings and followed Xiaohua step by step towards the Imperial Academy. How dare you? Professor Dou let out a furious roar. Instantly, the noble spirit within a 3-meter radius around him exploded. Hundreds of hurricanes whizzed out in all directions like tiny pythons. Wu Xiaohua faced it directly. The fierce wind column was like the tail of a poisonous snake hitting his body. Xiaohua did not even lift the wishful staff. He just walked forward lazily with his hands folded. The professor's probing method was really not enough for Xiaohua. Dao Sec's methods are indeed impressive. Professor Dou's slender eyes became even more slender. He praised, raised his hand and said loudly, Students! Previously, when Dao Sec's immortal friends came to barge into the Imperial Academy, before we figured out the reason, we could not act rashly. We could not bully them with numbers. Now, everything has come to light. Dao Sec's immortal friends still want to barge into the Imperial Academy. This is a provocation to the Imperial Academy, a provocation to the Confucian cultivators. Therefore, we must work together to resist the Dao Sec's invasion. Listen to my command, 100 Seed Book Array. Spread the name of the Imperial Academy, and protect the legacy of the Confucian cultivators. Yes, after Professor Dou, the students who were lined up neatly in the Imperial Academy shouted in unison. Then they waved their hands. Some of them held scrolls, some of them held ink brushes and started to recite poems. In an instant, rays of green light flashed above their heads. First they condensed into words. Then, they attracted each other and condensed into lines of poems. When there were more poems, they formed into articles. These articles hovered above the Imperial Academy. Along with the chanting of the students, not only did they make sonorous sounds, but they also absorbed a lot of noble spirit and caused the green light to shine. Rise after Professor Dou gave the order. He raised both of his hands and opened his 10 fingers slightly. A very strange force was produced from his hands, urging the noble spirit. It was as if the hand of a nascent soul was pinching toward Xiaohua. How can such a weak force be a match for Xiaohua? Although Xiaohua was very puzzled by this strange force, since it was similar to the hand of a nascent soul. Why would Xiaohua be afraid? He sneered and still flew up. He waved the wishful staff in his hand, and shattered the hand formed by the noble spirit. Professor Dou's face became serious again. His body flashed with a spiral vortex and countless noble spirit rushed into his body. Then, layers of green brilliance were produced from the soles of his feet, and rushed to the middle dantian in his chest. Poof! Professor Dou's face flashed with green light. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of green gas from his mouth. A particle the size of a thumb rushed out. Wood essence gathering. Wood essence gathering. Although Xiaohua didn't understand, the group of girls who worshipped Dou Shanjun were obviously very familiar with Professor Dou and had already shouted crazily. Wood essence gathering. Xiaohua's eyes were bright, staring at the seed that seemed to be condensed from wood essence. He was very curious about what this wood essence gathering would do. Buzz! The dark green seed let out a rumbling sound. It was like a magic treasure, and countless noble qi in the surroundings rushed towards the seed. The more noble spirit there was, the brighter the seed became. Then, it unexpectedly grew in midair and turned into a sapling. In the blink of an eye, the sapling swelled again and a python-like vine appeared in front of Xiaohua. Ha ha ha, so it's like this. Xiaohua laughed and waved his hand almost without hesitation. More than 10 fire talismans rushed towards the sapling like moths to a flame. Dou Shanjun sneered. Around the vine, a layer of strange isolation appeared in an instant, trying to block the fire talismans outside of the vine. Explode! Xiaohua laughed and activated the spell in his hand. Boom boom boom! Several fire talismans turned into huge fireballs and shattered Professor Dou's defense in the blink of an eye. Professor Dou obviously didn't expect Xiaohua's fire talismans to be so powerful. He was shocked and hurriedly urged the vine to move. It had to be said that Professor Dou was the dean of the Imperial Academy. His strength was obvious to all. Just as Xiaohua's fire talismans broke through the defense, the vines that were previously as thick as an arm had turned into huge vines that were almost 10 feet long. They were like hundreds of violent horned dragons, baring their fangs and claws as they pounced towards Xiaohua. One could imagine, in the eyes of the thousands of students and villagers, these hundreds of huge vines had completely covered the sky above the Imperial Academy. What an arrogant Abijna this was. And the target of these terrifying vines was the skinny little Taoist cultivator. Although this little cultivator's Taoist robe was already fluttering in the wind, although this little cultivator's hair was already blown up, he had the heavenly horse behind him and Dao Shan who was staring at this world with his head drooping. This little cultivator had no other choice but to use the wishful rod to challenge this huge monster. Explode explode explode! Seeing the countless huge vines pressing down on him, Xiaohua was not afraid. He chanted a few incantations, and the remaining fire talismans exploded around the huge vines. Boom boom! Although the huge python was formed from the noble qi, it was still condensed from the wood qi. Under Xiaohua's fire talismans, it was still blown up and even burned. Seeing this, Xiaohua couldn't help but be delighted. He understood that he no longer had any worries when facing Professor Dou, who was a Confucian cultivator, who used the wood qi. Any fire element spell could catch him off guard. Sure enough, Dou Shanjun's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly opened his mouth and blew. A strong gust of wind rushed towards the burning areas. What was strange was that this gust of wind actually blew the fireballs out of the fire talismans, until they were on the verge of collapse. You think I'm bragging? Xiaohua sneered. Even if you can brag to the heavens, you still won't be able to stop this Xiao from smashing your so-called wood essence into the heavens today. Following Xiaohua's mocking voice, hundreds of fire talismans appeared around the wooden vines out of thin air. With a rumbling sound, they exploded and ignited the entire wooden vines from head to toe. Professor Dou was now in the same state as Professor Hu. He was trembling in anger because of Xiaohua. He clearly felt that Xiaohua's strength was not higher than his. and was even much weaker. However, Xiaohua's strength was extremely great, and the wishful rod was strange. His methods were unable to restrain it. Now that he had taken out the wood qi, it was completely restrained by Xiaohua's fire talismans. What was more special was that his wooden vines were about to be burned up, and the wooden vines had not even hit Xiaohua. Xiaohua did not even have the slightest bit of Xiaohua's mana. What about me? I'm also very handsome, Xiaohua said and flew forward for a while. He was about to reach the gate of the Imperial Academy. Forget it, Professor Dou sighed. He opened his mouth and a ray of light rushed into the fire. Then, as the light retracted, a seed the size of a thumb was swallowed into Professor Dou's stomach. Following that, Professor Dou hurriedly retreated into the sky above the Imperial Academy. Over there, thousands of students were reciting poems and books. They had already covered the entire Imperial Academy like layers of a green net. Fu Yin Doushan Jun fell into the middle of the words, and immediately started reciting. His recitation was very strange. At the beginning, it was only one voice. But in a moment, it seemed to have an accent. After a few breaths, the accent became even more serious. It was as if 100 mouths were reciting at the same time. Chapter 33-43. However, this was not the only strange thing. Dou Shanjun's recitation was different from the other students' recitation. The essays did not fly out and merge with the other essays. Instead, they rushed to the top of Dou Shanjun's head and gradually condensed. What kind of divine ability is this? Xiaohua was somewhat astonished. This is the 100-seed chorus. Just when Xiaohua did not know how to deal with it, a voice came from Xiaohua's right hand. Fujiwen. Xiaohua frowned and looked over. Sure enough, Fujiwen, who had just sent Xiao Jian and the others out of Copper Pillar State, was standing on a magic cloud and flying over. He shouted, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, this is the 100-seed chorus of my Confucian cultivator. It is very powerful. I'm afraid you are not his opponent. Let's see how I deal with it." Xiaohua sighed and smiled bitterly. "Little friend Fu, since you left, why did you come back? Don't you feel that you are a burden?" "I appreciate fellow Taoist Zhao's good intentions," Fujiwen said while flying. "I also know why you asked me to send the 3 Taoists out of the city. However," Fujiwen pointed at Dao Shan's remains and said heavily, "Great Master Dao Shan did good for his entire life. Today he actually ended up in such a miserable state. This is the injustice of heaven and earth, the tragedy of human relationships. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you are a disciple of the Tao sect. Naturally, you have to seek justice for your disciples. However, in this world, you are not the only one who has a heart that seeks justice. I came back today to tell you that other than you, there is also me, and even other Taoists who heard about this matter have the intention to seek justice for Great Master Dao Shan. However, their strength is shallow and they have the heart but not the strength. Since I have some strength and admire Great Master Dao Shan, why can't I help fellow Taoist?" Ha ha ha. Xiaohua heard this and laughed unconsciously. He clapped his hands 3 times and said, "My Tao is the Tao of heaven. My path is the path to heaven. From today onwards, my Tao is not alone." Unfortunately, Fujiwen did not understand the meaning of Xiaohua's words. He only flew in front of Xiaohua and looked at Dou Shanjun with a serious expression. In the blink of an eye, Dou Shanjun's chants formed into countless articles, and these articles actually condensed into a human figure above his head. However, this figure was extremely blurry and only had a silhouette. "This is a child," Fujiwen said solemnly. "You can control the noble spirit, and you can also control the words. In your hands, these words can kill people." As Fujiwen spoke, his body also flashed with clear light. Inscriptions gushed out from the surface of his body. First, they condensed into simple armor on his body. Then, under Fujiwen's control, they turned into thousands of tadpoles that floated in the air nearby. This is a type of formation? Xiaohua was a formation grandmaster. When he saw the inscriptions on the armor connecting with each other and absorbing the noble spirit, he immediately had a plan and thought in surprise. "With my will, with the heart of a child, 100 articles, Intimidate the evil. Professor Doe's 100 mouths suddenly sounded in unison. Sure enough, 100 articles flashed with green light and flew out from the mountain of literature, landing in front of the child. The blurry child opened its mouth and said, "Suppress." Woo! The 100 articles were like 100 large nets, dragging a myriad of noble qi as they fell towards Fu Jiwen and Xiaohua. Each article had several hundred sentences, and each sentence had a dozen words. The 100 articles had several tens of thousands of words, and all of them emitted a kind of unparalleled suppressive force. It was even more majestic than a mountain as it rushed down, as if it wanted to crush Xiaohua and Fu Jiwen into meat paste. 36 Heavenly Dipper Word Soul Formation. Break for me. Fu Jiwen saw such a big formation, and his expression changed slightly. However, his eyes were filled with determination. He shouted and raised his hands. The floating inscriptions on the armor immediately flashed and turned into 36 huge inscriptions that Xiaohua had never seen before, rushing towards the child. It's a bit strange. Xiaohua was originally observing the flaws of the 100 articles, but when he suddenly saw Fu Jiwen turn the 36 Heavenly Dipper Word Soul Formation into 36 inscriptions that he had never seen before, he couldn't help but be shocked. However, the 36 Heavenly Dipper words that attracted his attention actually gave birth to a fierce intent. They were even sharper than the simple inscriptions from before. Boom! A series of explosions sounded like firecrackers. When the 36 Heavenly Dipper words collided with the 100 articles of the child, the articles were smashed into pieces. Many of the articles were rearranged and turned into words, and these words were absorbed by the Heavenly Dipper words. Damn it, I underestimated this Fu Jiwen. Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised. This guy really has some skill. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could be happy for a moment, the child above Do Shanjun's head said again, "Suppress." Following these two words, another 100 articles fell. Student surnamed Fu Do Shanjun's voice sounded. This one understands your intentions, but you should know that you are only a single person. How many articles can you read in your lifetime? As for my child, they are all excellent articles at your fingertips. Every article will consume a lot of your energy. The child's articles are endless, but will your energy be exhausted? My life has a limit, but my learning is endless. I don't want to read all the books in the world. I only want to memorize the Song of Righteousness. Fu Jiwen was not afraid in the slightest. If I don't read the Song of Righteousness, even if my life is endless, even if I read all the books in the world, what can I do? Rumble as he spoke, the 100 articles fell again, but this time Fu Jiwen's Heavenly Dipper Word Soul Formation fruit couldn't withstand it, and the words fell apart. However, Fu Jiwen clenched his teeth and raised his hands. Once again, 36 inscriptions appeared. However, these inscriptions were different from the ones before. Seeing Fu Jiwen's deathly pale face, Xiaohua's gaze swept over the newly formed inscriptions. As if he was suddenly enlightened, he said, "Damn it, this old man understands. Isn't this the green seal script of soul cultivators? Isn't this method of Confucian cultivators just some bullshit word shaking the universe? This is copying other soul cultivators' methods." Xiaohua had just woken up when the 36 inscriptions controlled by Fu Jiwen were immediately smashed to pieces by Professor Du's harmonious cry of the 100 children. This was even more thorough than before. Those inscriptions didn't even have time to flicker with splendor before they were smashed into righteous qi. Pfff. Fu Jiwen spat out a mouthful of blood essence from his mouth. His figure swayed slightly, and he became dispirited in midair. Seeing this, Xiaohua said in a clear voice, "Little friend Fu, you should step back first. Sit on the Pegasus and rest. Just look at this Xiao." Sorry. Hearing Xiaohua's call, Fu Jiwen turned his head. His face was pale gold, and he said with a wry smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao should look for an opportunity to escape. You and I'm afraid we aren't their match." However, before Fu Jiwen could finish his words, Xiaohua suddenly felt that between heaven and earth, there was a sudden deathly silence, and then endless sounds of reading could be heard. The sound of reading was originally loud and clear, but in just a moment, it turned into a clamor. Moreover, this clamor became louder and louder, covering all the sounds in the world. Even if Xiaohua saw Fujiwen opening his mouth to say something, he couldn't hear a single word clearly. Sound attack? Xiaohua smiled faintly and used his finger to point at the Pegasus, indicating for Fujiwen to come forward. Just as Fujiwen flew towards the Pegasus, thousands of sounds filled Xiaohua's ears like buzzing flies, and even rushed into Xiaohua's heart through his ears. What was special was that a kind of soaring heroic spirit was born from his heart, and a feeling of blood gushing out from his blood vessels at the same time. Umph. Do you have any other methods? Xiaohua sneered. If it was in the past, he might have been worried about this kind of sound attack, but at this moment he had already cultivated the Devil Realm's cultivation method, and had already begun to refine his devil blood. How could the control of his blood vessels be compared to that of a Confucian cultivator? There was no need for Xiaohua to take the initiative to defend himself. The feeling of blood gushing out had only just appeared, and with a little circulation of his devil technique, it immediately disappeared. Although Fujiwen was very helpless in his heart, he was now seriously injured. Not to mention that the inscriptions on the outside of his body had already dimmed, and could only protect a limited area. Even the inside of his middle dantian was a mess. Fujiwen's middle dantian was different from that of an ordinary Confucian cultivator. Although it was also refined with noble qi, it was not pure true qi, but a vague thing like a book page. This book page seemed to be a seed, and also seemed to be a golden core, and even like a turtle shell. However, although there were some simple inscriptions on the book page, the outline of the book page had already been destroyed, like a mulberry leaf that had been swallowed by a silkworm, very damaged. Fujiwen slightly sensed it, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. This book page was his biggest secret, and no one had ever revealed it. Although he still didn't know what this book page in his middle dantian was, he did know that it was extraordinary. Taking a deep breath, Fujiwen urged his Confucian cultivation method, opened his mouth, and the abundant noble qi rushed into his body. It didn't need to pass through any meridians, and directly penetrated into the book page in his middle dantian. The book page flashed with a faint white light, and the white brilliance was like strands of silk, slowly winding around and repairing it. Just as Fujiwen took his first breath, a scene that he would never forget stunned him. He was so shocked that he even forgot to repair the book page in his body. He looked at Xiaohua, who was standing in front of him, with an inconceivable gaze. The current Xiaohua was so shocking that he could shock the world. A faint green brilliance was leisurely emerging from between his eyebrows like a layer of faint fog. Along with this green light, a loud sound like a big yellow bell came out of his mouth. Once this sound came out, not to mention the hundreds of children, even the recitation of the thousands of students in the academy, was immediately suppressed. Chapter 3344. Not only that, a green dot of light the size of a soybean appeared along with the thunderous roar. The moment this dot of light appeared, it immediately caused a phenomenon in the sky. The sky above the Imperial Academy was filled with raging winds and dark clouds. Waves of dull thunder rumbled along with the dark clouds. Before Fujiwen could see it clearly, another strange sound came from Xiaohua's mouth, and in an instant, another green dot of light flew out. Boom boom boom. This light spot had an even more drastic change. Hundreds and thousands of lightning bolts as thick as a thumb flashed and surged towards the Imperial Academy. The lightning bolts landed on the Z, on top of the professor's head, and the green word net formed by thousands of students reciting poems. What frightened Fujiwen even more was that the seemingly indestructible green word net, the words that easily shattered his 36 heavenly dipper soul formation, and the hundreds of poems that even Taoist techniques found difficult to shatter, were actually melting faster than snow in the face of boiling water. Even the Z, that the professor was so proud of, the Z, that was formed by words and the noble spirit, collapsed under the lightning bolts. Not only did it turn into dull and lifeless words, it also turned into the purest noble spirit under the green lightning bolts. Lightning attracting technique. Fujiwen suddenly realized and thought of a Taoist abhijna from long ago. He was astonished. In fact, not only was Fujiwen stunned, even Xiaohua himself did not expect this lightning and thunder technique to have such a miraculous effect on the Confucian cultivator's 100 scholars chant. Xiao Hua was first shocked for a moment. Then he immediately roared into the sky. Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua laughed in his heart and thought to himself, this is really a fake meeting the real thing. Just now he looked unusually ferocious, but now he is so weak. So he is just a good-looking but useless piece of trash. Xiao Hua's roar did not stop. Following his roar, the word lightning flashed continuously. The lightning bolts in the sky fell like raindrops, smashing onto the heads of the students of the Imperial Academy. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the streaks of green lightning striking Do Shanjun's head and around. He shouted fiercely, damn it, even if I don't kill you, I will destroy your pretty face. Of course, this was only Xiao Hua's idea. He activated the art of lightning and thunder to trap Elder Yuan's students and Professor Dushan Jundu. Following which, he rode his heavenly horse and galloped across the sky, charging towards the Imperial Academy. Still want to leave? Jiang Wenhao, hand over your life. Jiang Wenhao was indeed smart. Seeing that Do Shanjun's chorus of the 100 seedlings was defeated by Xiao Hua, he had already fled and rushed towards the depths of the Imperial Academy on his flying sword. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's soul consciousness had already locked onto him. The heavenly horse crossed the red wall of the Imperial Academy. Xiao Hua roared and a few more streaks of lightning fell from the sky, blocking Jiang Wenhao's path. Senior Xiao Jiang Wenhao turned pale with fright and said with an apologetic smile, this is all a misunderstanding. This junior has already explained everything clearly. If you don't believe me, this junior won't leave and will accompany senior. Oh. Xiao Hua's gaze was like lightning. He looked straight at Jiang Wenhao and laughed coldly. Jiang Wenhao, what's the use of saying so much now? No matter what happens today, no matter who comes, no matter if you are innocent or not, I will definitely take your head. Say, senior seeing the lightning bolts falling, Jiang Wenhao wanted to spit out his flying sword to resist, but he did not dare to do so. However, he was also unwilling to surrender. Unknowingly, he felt a little despondent. He did not know if he was feeling regret or something else. Just as Jiang Wenhao was worrying about his gains and losses, suddenly, all the earth-shattering noises disappeared. It was as if all the lightning in the sky was just a golden millet. Ah, what's going on? Jiang Wenhao stared blankly. Just as he was about to look around, Xiao Hua's shocked and angry voice exploded in his ears like a clap of thunder. Evil creature, you still say you didn't do any evil? Look at what's in your arms. What? Jiang Wenhao was originally a little dazed. Xiao Hua's angry roar was deliberate and directly shocked him into a daze. Jiang Wenhao could not help but lower his head to look. Indeed, a corner of a jade tablet was revealed in his arms. Jiang Wenhao pulled the jade tablet out and threw it out as if he had seen a ghost. He shouted, no, you are framing me. I have already thrown this jade tablet to at this point. Jiang Wenhao seemed to have realized something. His face was as white as paper, and he stood in mid-air in a daze. It seems like I am framing you. Xiao Hua, who had just retracted his lightning and thunder technique, said plainly, so you have already thrown this jade tablet away. I wonder, where did you throw it to? Of course, it doesn't matter where you threw it to. The important thing is, this jade tablet belongs to the Seven Suns Temple. How did it end up in your hands? Why did you throw it away with a guilty conscience? Xiao Hua's face was filled with a cold smile. He waved his hand and the jade tablet slowly landed in his hand. To be honest, he did not care about this jade tablet. It was only when Jiang Wenhao escaped from the Imperial Academy and hid this item in a tree hole that he remembered that he did not obtain any information about this jade tablet from Wuxia's memories. It was probably Jiang Wenhao who saw this jade tablet on the spur of the moment. It was also because of this spur of the moment that he exposed himself and finally admitted that he was in charge of the Seven Suns Temple tragedy in front of the Imperial Academy students. Jiang Wenhao. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to say anything, Professor Dou's face was already paler than a sheet of paper. It was a pity that there were no scars on his face. Professor Dou lamented. How could you be so heartless? I have misjudged you. Jiang Wenhao was only momentarily absent-minded. Now that he had regained his composure, he no longer cared about his reputation. The sword radiance beneath his feet was activated, and he charged into the Imperial Academy trying to escape? Xiaohua laughed coldly. If I don't kill you today, I am not worthy of being a Taoist disciple. As he spoke, he leaped onto the Pegasus. The Pegasus did not wait for Xiaohua's orders, and it chased after Jiang Wenhao like a ray of light. Xiaohua Professor Dou looked dispirited, but he still stepped on the cloud and shouted, "Even if Jiang Wenhao did evil, that is the Imperial Academy's problem. We have the right to punish our own disciples. You are a Taoist disciple. You have no right." That's right. Jiang Wenhao had exposed himself and the Imperial Academy's reputation had been tarnished. If the Imperial Academy wanted to regain their reputation, the only way was to punish Jiang Wenhao personally, or even kill him. However, if Xiaohua were to kill Jiang Wenhao now, not only would the Imperial Academy lose their chance to regain their reputation, Xiaohua would also make things worse for the Imperial Academy. There was no way they could regain their reputation no matter what. Therefore, Dou Shan hurriedly chased after Xiaohua, even though he knew that he was no match for Xiaohua. "Ah, dream on." Xiaohua laughed arrogantly. "I will take Jiang Wenhao's life today." As he spoke, Xiaohua glanced at the group of students who were chasing after him. The lightning flashes and thunder rolls technique was unleashed again. Lightning of various colors appeared out of thin air. "Humph, rascal." Suddenly, a disdainful snort could be heard in the air above the Imperial Academy. Once these three words appeared, the noble spirit around the Imperial Academy immediately surged, as though there was a change in the weather. Hum hum hum. Immediately after, 100 pure white light pillars suddenly emerged from the righteous chi. The light pillars were even sharper than a huge sword and even faster than lightning as they pierced into Xiaohua's lightning. The lightning flashes and thunder rolls that were previously invincible were instantly pierced full of holes by the light pillars. This Xiaohua turned pale with fright. Before he could summon the lightning flashes and thunder rolls technique again, an incomparably righteous noble spirit rushed out from somewhere in the Imperial Academy, like a giant hammer striking towards him. Before the noble spirit even reached him, a feeling of indescribable pain emerged from the bottom of his heart. "Let's go quickly, this is a great scholar who can refine his energy." Fu Jiwen's reaction was faster than Xiaohua's as he hurriedly urged, "It's just refine his energy and refine his energy." Xiaohua cursed in his heart, but he did not dare to be negligent. He patted the Pegasus beneath him, and the Pegasus fluttered its feathers as it soared into the sky. Before the noble spirit could reach him, he had already escaped far away. Dean Dou Shanjun stopped in midair and bowed respectfully. "I am not talented enough to disturb your cultivation." The dean's voice could be heard. "The matter at the Seven Suns Temple is no small matter. You must." Before the dean could finish his sentence, Xiaohua's cold voice could be heard from the sky. "There is noble spirit in the world. This noble spirit is the principle, which is the principle. The principle is like a sword that hangs above one's head. Regardless of whether it is a great scholar or a student, as long as he touches this sword, he will definitely die. I am not talented enough, but since I want to take Jiang Wenhao's life, then I must do it." Hearing Xiaohua's words, Professor Dou's face revealed a puzzled expression. He raised his head and looked at Jiang Wenhao, whose face was as pale as death. At this moment, two small heads popped out from Jiang Wenhao's bosom. These two things were like black lightning and yellow wind as they flew out from Jiang Wenhao's bosom and disappeared in midair in an instant. Professor Dou did not even understand how the two little things flew away. Looking at Jiang Wenhao again, there was a shallow crack on his neck. Gradually, pitch-black blood flowed out, and countless black threads around the crack instantly spread to Jiang Wenhao's entire body. Rumble. Countless pillars of noble spirit condensed into noble spirit, majestically attacking the fleeing Xiaohua. However, just as these pillars of noble spirit were formed, Xiaohua's divine sense, which was comparable to a middle nascent soul stage, rushed over like a tidal wave. Bang, bang, bang. There was a burst of chaotic sounds, like concentrated firecrackers. Soon after, the noble spirit slowly dispersed. Humph, this was the dean's last bit of sound, and then there was no sound. This Professor Dou looked at Jiang Wenhao's corpse falling from midair. Before it even landed on the ground, It had already turned into ink-dripping fragments. He could not help but feel a trace of coldness in his heart. Xiao Hua's methods were indeed strange, but they were also flawless, making him feel powerless as if he was not an enemy. Chapter 3345. Dean Professor who flew over quietly and said softly, Xiao Hua of this sect is really powerful. It turned out that he had already buried a demon pet in Jiang Wenhao's body before seeing him. He could kill Jiang Wenhao with just a thought. And that aura was so terrifying that even the dean did not dare to kill him. It is not only because our academy is in the wrong. Yes. Professor Dou suddenly felt depressed. He defended Jiang Wenhao for half a day, but he did not expect Jiang Wenhao to be the real culprit. And Xiao Hua was just watching the show. Everything that happened before was just a monkey trick. Xiao Hua did not kill Jiang Wenhao because he wanted to find a moment of absent-mindedness and let him tell the truth. After pondering for a while, Professor Dou said, to be honest, this method is more reasonable than the so-called laws of the government. I really can't have the heart to kill Xiao Hua. You're right, Minister. Professor Hu nodded. This is also because our Imperial Academy is powerful. With the dean and dean in charge, the Taoist sect did not dare to do anything. They only dare to kill when they have real evidence. Professor Dou smiled bitterly. He looked at the gradually restored order under his feet and said, with this evidence, not only will the Imperial Academy's gate be destroyed for nothing, even if the Imperial Academy wants to find trouble with him, we will not be able to. Not only that, Professor Hu said again, I still have to think of how to explain to the Jiang family. Jiang family? Professor Dou's slender eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. I have long heard that the Jiang family coveted Xichao Ridge. I am afraid this is the Jiang family's instigator. What do we have to explain to the Jiang family? Just let them do as they please. There is the blood monument of Xiao Hua in the Seven Suns Temple. If the Jiang family has the guts, they can take over Xichao Ridge. After he finished speaking, Professor Dou flicked his sleeves and a ball of auspicious clouds appeared beneath his feet, carrying him out of the Imperial Academy. As for where he went, no one knew. However, the direction he went was completely different from the direction Xiao Hua escaped to. 100 li away from the Copper Pillar State, Xiao Hua was sitting on a Pegasus amidst the astral winds. The scattered light from the Pegasus not only covered Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen, but also covered Dao Shan's remains on the carriage. Although the wind was howling, Xiao Hua and the others' hair and Taoist robes did not move at all. Haha, awesome, awesome. Looking at the clear and cloudless sky, then looking at the blazing sun behind him, Xiao Hua let out a long howl and said loudly, Senior's godly skill is truly admirable. At this point, how could Fu Jiwen still dare to call Xiao Hua fellow Taoist? He spoke very respectfully. Hehe, it's nothing. Xiao Hua waved his hand indifferently. There are some restrictions on this old man's body that are only 40% effective. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to run away in fear when I saw the old ghost. Hehe. Fu Jiwen also didn't know whether Xiao Hua was telling the truth or not. He faintly smiled, lowered his head to look at the ground that was already extremely small, and suddenly cried out, Io, Senior, did you go the wrong way? Xiao Jian and the rest did not go this way. Xiao Hua did not think much of it. It would be weird if he did not get lost. However, he did not point it out. He looked at the carriage behind him and said, I know the direction is wrong. However, I am not chasing after the three of them. I am going to bury Master Dao Shan's remains. Previously, in order to let Master Dao Shan rest in peace, I exposed his remains in front of everyone. Now that I have avenged him, I have to find a good place to bury him. Senior. Fu Jiwen naturally looked at Dao Shan as well. However, he suddenly exclaimed in shock. Master Dao Shan's eyes are closed. Oh, really? Xiao Hua hurriedly looked again. Sure enough, Dao Shan's eyes, which he had dyed with remaining grievances, were now closed. The horrifying expression on his face had been replaced with a serene expression. Ba, Xiao Hua could not help but shout. There is kindness in the human world. Master Dao Shan can finally rest in peace. Ba? Fu Jiwen looked at Xiao Hua and could not help but curse. Senior Xiao killed people without blinking. You actually dare to chant the name of Buddha? Oh right, little friend Fu. Xiaohua thought of something and said, do you know if there is a place with beautiful scenery? Oh, or is it the place with good feng shui that you mentioned? Fu Jiwen shook his head and said embarrassedly, Junior only heard about it. I am not proficient in it. I am not even as good as Xiao Jian. If Senior wants to find a place with excellent feng shui, why don't you ask Xiao Jian? Xiao Jian? That guy knows about feng shui? Xiaohua was surprised. He suddenly remembered the scene of Xiao Jian selling fortune-telling on the streets of Longevity Town. Don't be fooled by him. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, Senior, don't belittle Taoist Xiao. He has some real skills in him. If he doesn't know anything, how can he fool others? That's true. Xiaohua nodded and looked around. He looked at the north, south, east, and west, then asked, where did they go? After Fu Jiwen pointed in the direction, Xiaohua urged the Pegasus to carry Dao Shan's corpse and chase after them. Senior, seeing that the Pegasus had attracted the attention of many passers-by and many elderly, women and children bowed down in fear, Fu Jiwen could not help but remind Xiaohua softly, we just offended the Imperial Academy in the Bronze Pillar Country. This should be within the borders of the Bronze Pillar Country. Senior, can you keep the Pegasus? Moreover, Master Dao Shan's corpse is not suitable for others to see. If it is not convenient for Senior, how about I keep it in my small Qingquan bag? No need, I will do it myself. Xiaohua used his spiritual will to scan the area. As he answered, he rode the Pegasus to a place where there was no one and kept Dao Shan's corpse. He casually threw the old carriage on the ground, and kept the Pegasus as well. Fu Jiwen saw how casual Xiaohua was and could not help but show admiration in his eyes. He could not help but say, Senior's demonic pet is really powerful. Its flying speed is even faster than the Pegasus. Today, if not for a Senior releasing these two demon pets first, and leaving them by Jiang Wenhao's side in advance, I'm afraid that going to find Jiang Wenhao again would be even more difficult. Not necessarily. Xiaohua laughed coldly. Even without the help of these two little things, I will kill my way into the Bronze Pillar Country in 10 days. If the Imperial Academy protects Jiang Wenhao, I will destroy the Imperial Academy. If the Jiang family protects Jiang Wenhao, I will uproot the Jiang family. Since the day I set up the blood monument, my Taoist disciples will not be bullied. Especially Master Dao Shan. He is a true Taoist master that I respect. 10 days. Fu Jiwen was slightly puzzled, but he suddenly realized, Senior, you mean you will break into the Jiang family of the Bronze Pillar Country in 10 days? And kill the rest of them one by one? That's right. I have the same intention. Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a cold light. Blood grudges must be repaid with blood. I want to let the Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent know not to provoke me. If they provoke me, I will definitely make them suffer. Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. The current Xiaohua was obviously different from the Xiaohua he saw last night at Jiaxing Lu. He was less amiable and more murderous. Fu Jiwen thought for a while and suggested, if Senior feels that you can challenge the entire Jiang family of Confucian cultivators, then Junior will not dare to stop you. But if Senior has not reached the divine transformation stage of Taoist, Junior feels that Senior should wait for a few more days. After all, Senior killed Jiang Wenhao and alarmed the Jiang family. You have also offended the Imperial Academy, and the Bronze Pillar Country. Especially, the other martial masters who committed the crime. I am afraid that news of them has already spread. It will be difficult for you to find them alone. Xiaohua sighed and looked at the barren land in front of him. However, there were still some crops desperately trying to grow. He said, I know that Jiang Wenhao will definitely not do it himself. I also want to kill those accomplices first. But there are always a few ways to deal with things. Each method has its advantages and disadvantages. I am afraid that I have chosen the most difficult method, which is also the most disadvantageous. However, I do not regret it. For Master Dao Shan, an old man who has been silently contributing to Taoist sects, I am willing to overturn the entire Bronze Pillar Country. Senior, please follow Xiao Jian to another place first. First, you should finish your own matters. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. When Junior returns, I will secretly look for these people. When Junior has news, how about it? And that is the only way. Xiaohua was helpless. He was now alone. If he were to look for these people by himself, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, Xiaohua was not good at looking for people. However, Xiaohua immediately felt a little embarrassed. His heart was moved and he said with a smile, Little friend Fu, you and I have never met before. It is just that we have hit it off at first sight. Last night and even today, you have helped this old man too much. This old man does not know how to thank you. Looking at Xiaohua's smiling appearance, Fu Jiwen was also enlightened. The words that Xiaohua had said when he killed Jiang Wenhao suddenly appeared in his mind. My Tao is the Tao of heaven. My path is the path to the heavens. From now on, my Tao is not alone. How heroic was this? What kind of spirit was this to trample the heavens and earth under one's feet? The meaning of Xiaohua's words was clear. Fu Jiwen could not help but be moved at this moment. It was a pity that if such heroic words were said by the Imperial Academy, Fu Jiwen would probably kneel down and acknowledge him as his master. However, since it was said by Xiaohua, Fu Jiwen could not help but reconsider. Fu Jiwen saw Xiaohua's courage to barge into the Imperial Academy. Fu Jiwen also saw Xiaohua's loyalty in killing Jiang Wenhao. Fu Jiwen also saw the righteousness that Xiaohua gave him with the thunder-amplifying wood. However, if Fu Jiwen wanted to abandon everything and acknowledge Xiaohua as his master and completely walk on the narrow path of Taoist sects, Fu Jiwen could not help but hesitate. Chapter 3346. Seeing the hesitation on Fu Jiwen's face, Xiaohua immediately took out a jade bottle and handed it to Fu Jiwen with a smile. Little friend Fu, this is a rejuvenation pill. It's my Tao Sex spirit pill. Take it and give it to your wife. It will have a miraculous effect. Looking at the jade bottle, Fu Jiwen's mouth was a bit dry. He didn't know whether to take it or not. He smiled bitterly and said, Senior Xiao, Junior has some difficulties. Although my Fu family is a family of Confucian cultivators, because Junior practices Tao Sex magic arts, and because of my wife, I have already moved out of the family. Otherwise, I wouldn't have less than 50 high-grade primordial stones. Haha, little friend Fu, no need to say more. Xiaohua stuffed the jade bottle into Fu Jiwen's hand and waved his hand. Last night at the auction, this old man already said that you and I met by fate. Today, you stepped forward bravely again. This old man feels even more congenial. This rejuvenation pill is a little bit of this old man's appreciation. Take it. In addition, if you need any pills or spirit herbs for Tao Sex magic arts, you can tell me. You can also be considered half a Tao Sex disciple. If this old man doesn't help you, who should I help? Fu Jiwen's face relaxed a bit and said with a smile, Junior's magic arts are not completely pure Tao Sex magic arts. For the time being, I don't need any pills or spirit herbs. If Junior needs them in the future, I can ask Senior. Senior is my Tao Sex disciple. If Junior doesn't ask Senior, who else can I ask? Haha, that's right. Xiaohua laughed. When Fu Jiwen saw that Xiaohua didn't blame him and didn't turn hostile, his heart calmed down. Looking at Xiaohua flying in front of him, he thought for a moment and took out a jade eye from his bosom. He carefully said, Senior Xiao, you have been using the Tao Sex flying technique all this time, right? Although the flying technique of Taoism is fast, it looks very strange. It's like an ordinary person walking barefoot without shoes. I have a Confucian cultivation technique that allows you to ride the clouds. I don't know if you can use it. Take it as a gift from me to you. Xiaohua looked at Fu Jiwen with interest. He understood that in Fu Jiwen's heart, it wasn't that he didn't want to acknowledge him as his master. He was afraid that Fu Jiwen really had some difficulties that he had told him. These jade eyes were a buffer that Fu Jiwen had left for him. If it was someone else, Xiaohua might not have accepted him. After all, he had already made his intentions clear, and he almost wanted Fu Jiwen to be his disciple. However, Xiaohua really valued Fu Jiwen. Fu Jiwen was able to stand up against the cultivators of the Imperial Academy with that strange runic word formation. This was definitely not something an ordinary Confucian scholar could do. Therefore, Xiaohua stretched out his hand, took the jade eyes, and threw it to the green-robed Xiaohua in the space. He smiled and said, "Stones from other mountains can be used to improve jade. Then this old man will take a look at the wonders of the Confucian cultivator's cloud riding technique." When Fujiwen saw Xiaohua retracting his jade eyes, he was very happy in his heart. He smiled and said, "There might not be any marvelous places, but the divine arts of Confucian cultivators have always been particular about appearances." Senior used the cloud riding technique to show the appearance of an otherworldly expert. As for the wonders, I feel that many of the spells of Taoism are the truly marvelous ones. At this point, Fujiwen hesitated slightly and probed. Furthermore, I feel that many of the techniques and spells of Taoism and Confucian cultivators are similar. Perhaps we can learn from each other. Oh, is that so? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and looked at Fujiwen even more seriously. Xiaohua looked at Fujiwen, and he felt a little guilty. Fujiwen hurriedly smiled and said, "This is just my feeling. After all, I have not seen many Taoism spells and my cultivation level is not as high as Senior's." "Senior, please don't laugh at me." "Laugh at you? Why should I laugh at you?" Xiaohua said with deep meaning. "When your cultivation level is high, you will naturally understand. All arts return to the origin. This is exactly how it is. Yes, I will remember Senior's teachings." Fujiwen replied respectfully. Then he carefully asked Xiaohua some difficult questions about cultivation. Xiaohua was not stingy. Not only did he answer them one by one, he even told him the reasons for these difficult questions and what might happen in the future. These words made Fujiwen scratch his ears and cheeks. He just wanted to immediately go into seclusion and cultivate. As the two talked, they flew for a long time. Xiaohua even released his divine sense, but he still could not find any trace of Xiao Jian and the others. Xiaohua was puzzled and bewildered. He glanced at Fujiwen, who was beaming with joy, and reminded him, "Little friend Fu, are you sure the direction is correct? Why haven't we seen Xiao Jian and the others for so long?" Fujiwen was suddenly shocked. He broke away from his comprehension and looked left and right. Then he used his divine sense to check. He said in a panic, "Senior, the direction is correct. I led them to the Great Tao and pointed out the direction before returning to the Bronze Pillar state. Daoist Xiao and the others should be coming from the front. Unless Daoist Xiao and the others return to the Bronze Pillar state like Senior. If it's the abyss, then it's possible." Xiaohua said with a smile. "Xiao Jian and Lu Yi definitely won't." "Why?" Fujiwen seemed to know that Xiaohua's sense of direction was not strong. He led the way and casually asked. "Xiao Jian has now obtained the heavenly pill, and is wholeheartedly focused on recovering his lost cultivation. He definitely won't look for this old man." Xiaohua explained. "Moreover, this old man has no special relationship with him. If he didn't have a favor to ask of this old man, I'm afraid he would have already run away. As for Lu Yi, he definitely won't run away. He's even worried about how to find this old man. However, if he didn't have full confidence, he definitely wouldn't have returned to the Bronze Pillar state. He also wouldn't have revealed that he knew this old man." Daoist Xiao Fujiwen was astonished. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Not every Dao disciple is a Daoshan master. Xiaohua said indifferently, "However, because Xiao Jian is a Dao disciple, this old man will help him." Yes, this junior understands. Fujiwen might not be as intelligent as Lu Yi, but he was definitely not a fool. He immediately understood. But since he already understood Xiao Jian's character, Fujiwen suddenly stopped in midair and laughed bitterly. If it's as Senior says, then Junior knows where Daoist Xiao went. Where? Xiaohua was curious. There are still a few paths from the Bronze Pillar state to the Jiang country. Fujiwen explained. The path that Junior pointed out to Daoist Xiao was the safest one, but after walking for a few miles, there were a few forks in the road. Although the other forks in the road were not very safe, there were few pedestrians and the journey was short. If Daoist Xiao was afraid that others would catch up, or if he wanted to concentrate on cultivating, he might choose these forks. Although Fujiwen said maybe, his tone was already certain. Xiaohua laughed bitterly and waved his hand. I'll have to trouble you again this time. This old man originally thought that once I found Xiao Jian and the others, I would quickly let you return. But now it seems that you will have to stay here for a while. Senior's words are too serious. Fu Jiwen laughed. My wife's matter was not settled in a day or two. Since the old housekeeper has already returned, it doesn't matter if Junior is late for a month. After saying that, Fu Jiwen led the way in another direction. Seeing Fu Jiwen's understanding of the situation and his control of the direction, Xiaohua felt a little envious from the bottom of his heart. In his eyes, the crisscrossing paths under his feet, the crisscrossing forest, and even the sun and moon in the sky were the reasons why he was lost. However, the development of the situation was out of Xiaohua and Fu Jiwen's expectations. The two of them searched for half a day and almost all the forks in the road, but they still could not find any trace of the three of them. Not only was Xiaohua confused, Fu Jiwen, who was originally full of confidence, also had an awkward expression on his face. Forget it. When Fu Jiwen was about to bring Xiaohua in another direction, Xiaohua looked at the setting sun and said, Little friend Fu, we don't have to search anymore. You can send Xiao Jian and the others out of the Bronze Pillar State and return to the Imperial Academy. It won't take too much time. Even though we flew out of the Bronze Pillar State for a while, this period of time was not enough for Xiao Jian and the others to fly out of the Bronze Pillar State. After searching for so long, we still can't find them. It's probably because Xiao Jian and the others are hiding somewhere. You should go back first. I also have some matters to attend to in the future. If fate allows, we will naturally meet again. When Fu Jiwen heard this, he stopped, bit his lips and nodded. Perhaps there is such a possibility. Otherwise, with their cultivation level, it should be impossible for them to escape from Senior's spiritual will. Since this is the case, Junior will take his leave. After Junior returns, I will think of a way to find the culprits who killed Master Dao Shan. Once Senior is done with your matters, you can come and find Junior. You can go first. Xiaohua nodded. Even though there was still some time before the agreed time between him and the Light Beast, he did not want to miss this rare opportunity to recover his cultivation level. It was better for him to rush there as soon as possible. Junior will take his leave. Fu Jiwen bowed slightly and actually said Junior. He slowly flew backwards for a distance before turning around and riding on a cloud. He waved his hand at Xiaohua and flew away. Haha. Xiaohua laughed and similarly waved his hand. Then he placed his hands behind his back and smiled as he watched Fu Jiwen leave. Xiaohua knew that Fu Jiwen had always been thinking about his wife. Accompanying him through life and death, Fu Jiwen could not wait to bury Master Dao Shan. Wasn't such a sentimental cultivator exactly what Xiaohua thought highly of? The people of the hidden immortal continent are really interesting. Xiaohua shifted his gaze away from Fu Jiwen's back and smiled as he muttered to himself. No matter if it is Fu Jiwen, Yu Zhongquan, Yuanya, Lu Yi, or even Xiao Jian, they all have their own characteristics and personalities. Senior before Xiaohua could activate his flying talisman, Fu Jiwen's voice came from behind him. Xiaohua was very surprised. He turned around and asked, Little friend Fu, is there anything else? Fu Jiwen flew closer. He was actually out of breath like an ordinary person running. Clearly he was in a hurry and was afraid that Xiaohua would leave. After resting for a moment, he hurriedly said, My apologies, Senior. Junior has just forgotten a place. If Senior feels that it is necessary, you should hurry there. Otherwise, if you are late, the lives of Daoist Xiao and the others will be in danger. Chapter 3347. Where? Xiaohua panicked. He might not care too much about Xiao Jian's life, but he did care about Lu Yi and Yuanya's lives. Black Cloud Ridge. Fu Jiwen laughed bitterly. Black Cloud Ridge? How is that possible? Xiaohua frowned. Isn't Black Cloud Ridge located at the border of Bronze Pillar Country, Jiang Country and Jiasa Country? It's still very far from the capital of Bronze Pillar Country. How did they reach Black Cloud Ridge? Fu Jiwen shook his head. Black Cloud Ridge is very far from the capital of Bronze Pillar Country. Even the shortest route is far from the border of Black Cloud Ridge. However, this shortest route is desolate and uninhabited. If Taoist Xiao and the rest really took this route and met the demons of Black Cloud Ridge, I'm afraid it's really possible. Of course, this is just something that I suddenly thought of. Logically, they shouldn't have entered Black Cloud Ridge. Where is Black Cloud Ridge? How far is it from here? Fu Jiwen pointed in the direction and said, "It should be more than 1,000 miles. Sigh, it's just 1,000 miles. Xiaohua sighed. It's really possible. Senior, if you go, you must be careful. Fu Jiwen reminded. They are not as reasonable as the scholars of the Imperial Academy, haha. Who would be afraid of them? Don't worry and go. Xiaohua laughed. With a wave of his hand, he activated the flying talisman and flew in the direction of Black Cloud Ridge. A distance of 1,000 li was indeed very far for ordinary people, and it would probably take several tens of days to reach it. However, for cultivators like Xiaohua, it was very close. In less than an hour, Xiaohua saw a few desolate mountains in front of him. The mountains were surrounded by black fog and had a sorrowful appearance. Xiaohua already knew that he didn't go in the wrong direction this time. This was Black Cloud Ridge. When Xiaohua flew closer and carefully sized up Black Cloud Ridge, he could not help but feel a little confused. The forests of the Dawnrain continent were mostly green with birds chirping and the mountains were quiet. There was always a sense of spiritual energy. Even if it was a barren land, it was only filled with jagged rocks, swamps, and miasma. It was a kind of natural barrenness or a natural barrier that was beyond the reach of human strength. However, this Black Cloud Ridge was different from what Xiaohua had seen before. This Black Cloud Ridge only had strange large rocks, and there were no greenery or grass to be seen, let alone any traces of humans. There were no mountain paths, only flat ground created by humans or demons. From afar, this flat ground looked like a scar on a beggar's head. What was special was that the black clouds didn't just cover the mountainsides and peaks of the mountains. Even the cracks of the mountain rocks in the ordinary mountain streams could be seen seeping out traces of black gas. Accompanying the black qi was an indescribable stench and blood that filled the entire mountain range. Xiaohua's mouth and nose had long been surrounded by this stench, making Xiaohua feel extremely uncomfortable. Sigh, no wonder it's called the Black Cloud Ridge. Only demons can survive here. Ordinary people would have lost their lives long ago. Xiaohua sighed and looked around. He had already seen the bones scattered between the cracks of the rocks. Needless to say, they must have been eaten by the demons in the mountain. After looking for a moment, Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. This Black Cloud Ridge was not a single mountain, but several. After these several mountains, there were several continuous mountain ridges. Although there were no obvious black clouds in the mountain ridges, there was still a lot of black fog that was faintly discernible, giving off a demonic aura. This mountain ridge was not only deep, but it also stretched for hundreds of miles. At a glance, one couldn't see the end. Even divine sense couldn't search carefully. So how could Xiaohua find the traces of Xiao Jian and the others? This doesn't seem to be the Black Cloud Ridge that this Xiao imagined. Xiaohua saw it clearly and was a little dumbfounded. He thought that the Black Cloud Ridge was just a mountain, and that the demon that roared over the border river of the country of Xi was the king of the mountain. He thought that when he arrived at the Black Cloud Ridge, he would use the wishful staff to kill the demon and rescue Xiao Jian and the others from the cave. He had always been thinking about how to kill the demon, but he didn't expect that it would be so difficult to even find the demon. Of course, he also understood that the reason why Fu Jiwen didn't say anything was because Fu Jiwen had never been here, and only heard of the evil reputation of the Black Cloud Ridge. Fu Jiwen didn't know the real situation inside. What should I do? Xiaohua was a little anxious. Although he didn't believe that Xiao Jian was so coincidentally caught so far away in the Black Cloud Ridge, he also knew that if there was such a possibility, then the lives of Xiao Jian and the others were in danger. If he delayed for a moment, they would become food in the mouth of the demon. Let's fight. Xiaohua took out the wishful staff and looked at the towering Black Cloud Ridge. His eyes narrowed and he thought to himself, if I were to destroy the peak of this Black Cloud Ridge, would it attract the attention of the fairies? If one demon comes, then I will know the situation of all the demons in the Black Cloud Ridge, right? Thinking, Xiaohua urged the flight talisman to rush up the mountain, but at this moment, Xiaohua's heart moved. He patted his forehead and said with a wry smile, "Damn it, how could I forget about them? Isn't looking for people and demons their strong suit? Besides, the heavenly horse is a holy creature. As long as it appears, it will definitely attract the demon. Why do I have to do it myself?" Thinking, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the heavenly horse, Little Black and Little Yellow. The heavenly horse seemed to be extremely disgusted with the aura of the black cloud ridge. Its nose kept snorting, and its pure white tail was impatiently swinging. Its four hooves were also restlessly stomping in the air, and auspicious clouds were instantly born. The luster of the auspicious clouds and the brilliance of the heavenly horse drove away the black fog of the black cloud ridge. The fishy smell was also weakened by the brilliance. Of course, the pure white light of the heavenly horse was also corroded by a lot. Not bad. Xiaohua was very satisfied with the heavenly horse he obtained in the auction. He flew and landed on the heavenly horse's back, and ordered Little Black and Little Yellow to find Xiaojian's whereabouts. When Little Black heard that he was going to find someone, he was unhappy. "Father, the person we were looking for was really disgusting." He actually pinched the boy's tail with his hand. If it wasn't for Father's warning, the boy would have already bitten him to death. Looking at Little Black's childlike temper, Xiaohua smiled and patted his head. "Don't be long-winded. Go quickly. If you're late, these three people won't be able to live." "Yes, the boy knows. Father, don't worry. The boy will definitely find them." Seeing that Xiaohua was unhappy, Little Black didn't dare to say anything else. Just as he was about to fly away, Little Yellow shouted, "Mother, call Little Silver out too. Its nose is very sensitive, so it should be easier." Okay, Xiaohua thought that Little Silver only knew how to find spirit stones. He didn't know that Little Silver had this kind of talent. Feeling happy, he hurriedly let Little Silver out. Little Silver naturally didn't need Xiaohua's arrangement. Once it came out of the space, it squeaked a few times and immediately followed behind Little Yellow. Soon after, the three little things quickly flew away in the direction of the mountain range covered in black fog. "Let's go. You follow this old man to another place. Let's see who can find them first." Xiaohua patted the back of the heavenly horse's neck. The heavenly horse unfurled its two wings of light in an extremely intelligent manner. "Lu," it cried out a few times and flew towards one of the mountain peaks. Xiaohua's method was indeed useful. The Pegasus brilliance was like a brilliant pearl in the Black Cloud mountain range. Not to mention, the Pegasus roar was like a dragon's roar that shook the wilderness. In just a moment, there was a barbaric thought. Then, there were several small demons with pitch-black bodies covered in a faint demonic aura. They flapped their bat-like wings and flew out from various parts of the mountain range. They were even more greedy than flies that had seen fat meat. However, when these small demons flew closer, they saw the Pegasus' proud posture and the aura of its wings of light. They immediately fled in panic. Of course, the main reason was that Xiaohua, who was standing on the Pegasus' back, could clearly see that although these small demons didn't have any thoughts, when the tyrannical thought swept past, all of the small demons were keenly aware of it. They hurriedly dodged as if they were extremely afraid. In just a short moment, the filthy figures, strange faces, and ferocious gazes of the little demons left a deep impression on Xiaohua. "Ah yes." In an instant, Xiaohua sighed and secretly said, "The reason why demons are demons is because they are different from humans. Demons feed on humans and humans feed on livestock. What's the difference? We humans see demons as enemies, but I'm afraid that livestock also see us humans as enemies, right? I can speak bluntly, but how do you face those livestock?" "That brat you." Xiaohua sighed slightly. He saw that the place where the thought swept over, black clouds rolled, and a demonic wind surged. A 20 feet tall demon flew over very quickly under the cover of the black clouds. The slightly hoarse voice came from the demon's huge head. Xiaohua laughed and put away the Pegasus. He didn't even take the wishful staff. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the flying demon with interest. When the demon flew closer, Xiaohua could clearly see that the demon's whole body was covered in black hair like needles. Its 20 feet tall body was covered in human-like armor. On its huge head, two brownish-yellow eyes flashed with blood-red brilliance. The lower half of the head was a protruding mouth with two nostrils connected. The mouth opened and closed, revealing sharp snow-white teeth. The two small ears on both sides of the head moved slightly. This monster was actually a black bear spirit. Seeing the appearance of this demon, Xiaohua laughed again. It was really a coincidence. This demon was the one Xiaohua saw at the border between the country of Xi and the country of Jiasa. However, at this time, there was no naked woman in the demon's arms. Instead, there were a few chicken-like mortals in its hands. The other hand of the demon was holding a large human leg. As it flew, it tore and bit, and the red blood flowed down the corner of the demon's mouth. Chapter 33-48. The black bear spirit saw that Xiaohua had put away the Pegasus, and was looking at him with a smile on his face. Where was the fear that he had imagined? The black bear spirit was so shocked that he almost forgot to eat human flesh. He looked left and right to confirm that Xiaohua was smiling at him. When the black bear spirit realized that there was no one around, a bad premonition arose from the bottom of his heart. This was too abnormal. Black Cloud Ridge was rarely visited by humans. Today, a person with a Pegasus suddenly appeared. Moreover, this person didn't seem to have a strong cultivation. However, this person didn't seem to be panicking at all. He just stood in midair as if he was waiting for someone. He didn't even seem to be on guard as he watched the black bear spirit fly closer. When he thought of this, the black bear spirit didn't hesitate at all. He roared, "You brat, where are you running to?" As he spoke, the black bear spirit stirred the demonic cloud and flew in another direction. Humph! Xiaohua sneered and scolded. Stop! The black bear spirit didn't dare to stop. His body flashed with a black light, and the wind blew again. The demonic cloud grew several times larger, and in the blink of an eye, it rushed more than 100 feet away. You're courting death, Xiaohua said coldly, and then used the art of soul piercing. Of course, Xiaohua himself was also a little nervous. This black bear spirit was truly a spirit, and far from being as reckless as he had thought. It had fled without even exchanging a single word upon meeting. With Xiaohua's current flight talisman, he was afraid that he would not be able to catch up. Only the art of soul piercing could do something in a short time. However, Xiaohua had never used the soul stab technique against a demon, and he didn't know if it would be effective. Fortunately, after Xiaohua used the soul stab technique, the black cloud immediately stopped. Ao. The black bear spirit immediately threw down the mortals in his hands and fell from the clouds, holding his head with both hands. At the same time, he let out a muffled cry. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed. He didn't dare to be careless. He hurriedly used his flying talisman and waved his hands to catch the mortals the black bear spirit had thrown down. However, when Xiaohua caught a few mortals, he was once again dumbfounded. The black bear spirit that had been howling in grief earlier had disappeared. At the place where the black bear spirit fell, there was a crater in the rocks. The grayish-black vines between the rocks were also torn apart. Motherfucker, is this still a bear spirit? Was it still that stupid black bear that had turned into a demon? Why do I feel like he's 100 times more cunning than ordinary people? Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, with a wave of his hand, he sent the mortals into his Qingkuan bag. Then he sent his divine sense into the nearby ground. But a moment later, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and a dark green light flashed between his eyebrows again. The word lightning flew out of Xiaohua's forehead and rushed into the ground in the distance. Rumble! A muffled sound of thunder came from the bottom of a hill about 10 zhang away. This muffled sound did not even disturb the birds near the Black Cloud Ridge. Of course, this was on the premise that there were still surviving birds in this demonic Black Cloud Ridge. Boom! Immediately after, in front of Xiaohua, the hill that was almost 20 zhang tall suddenly shook violently. In an instant, it was as if a rock had broken through the sky. That hill turned into tens of thousands of huge rocks, and a black bear spirit that was almost 10 zhang tall rushed out from the hill with a roar. Although the cunning black bear spirit was now abnormally embarrassed and angry, he revealed his demon body Dharma form, and held a steel rod that was thicker than a human head in his left hand. Even his previously brownish-yellow eyes had now turned pitch black. However, this still couldn't hide his sorry state. Not to mention that the black bear spirit's black fur was now standing on end with streaks of lightning flashing between these black fur. Not to mention that the armor that covered his body was now completely shattered. Not to mention that the black gas that had transformed into a demon body was now riddled with holes by the lightning flashes and rolls of thunder technique. Just from the fact that the black bear spirit's thick arms were now trembling, one could tell that the black bear spirit had suffered a great loss at Xiaohua's hands. "You brat!" The black bear spirit jumped out of the hill, dust flying up from his body. Pieces of mountain rocks were shaken off by him. He was flustered and exasperated. "I see that your skin is soft and tender, and there's nothing to chew on. I'm too lazy to eat you. Furthermore, I have urgent matters to attend to in the cave residence. I'm rushing back. It's not that I'm afraid of you. If you continue to pester me like this, don't blame me for swallowing you in one bite." "Are you talking about this beef leg?" Xiaohua smiled and reached out with his hand. He took out the tendons that the black bear spirit had just swallowed. "This human leg. TSK, isn't it a little too strong? However, let me give you a piece of advice. Beef should be roasted before eating it raw. It's easy to have diarrhea if you eat it raw. You're courting death." The black bear spirit's soft spot seemed to have been touched. His eyes flashed with ferocity. With a hoo sound, he jumped up from the ground. The Damascus steel staff in his hand made a deafening sound as he swung it at Xiaohua's head. He even whimpered. "I didn't want to kill you, but you insisted on making me kill you. Then don't blame me for not being merciful." "Merciful?" Xiaohua smacked his lips. Looking at the black bear spirit who was much taller than him, he blinked. He really couldn't think of any connection between this black bear spirit and being merciful. The black bear spirit clearly wanted to silence him. The Damascus steel staff pressed down like a mountain, making one feel suffocated. However, seeing that Xiaohua still didn't seem to care, the black bear spirit almost wanted to cry. Regardless of whether Xiaohua had some ability or not, at least Xiaohua's demeanor as a grandmaster had completely stunned the black bear spirit. Who is this person? The enraged black bear spirit suddenly had a bad feeling. Just now, he had provoked the heavenly lightning when he escaped, and the heavenly lightning had strangely burrowed into the ground. Now he actually wanted to kill this person. What method did this person have to deal with him? "I shouldn't have come out today." The black bear spirit suddenly felt a sense of regret. Wouldn't it be better to study the old tree roots in the cave abode? Just as the Damascus steel rod, which was even bigger than Xiaohua's head, landed on top of Xiaohua's head, Xiaohua did not disappoint the black bear spirit. With a slight wave of his hand, he took out a club that looked like a toy. Similarly, he roared, "I'll let you have a taste of Grandpa's power." Wu dang! In exchange for these two sounds, the black bear spirit's entire world shook. The black bear spirit felt his arms go numb, and an unimaginable force rushed into his body. Even his 100 feet demon body could not withstand it. Not only was his roiling demonic aura torn apart, even his 100 feet demon body shrunk rapidly like air leaking out of a balloon. Not only that, the black bear spirit was sent flying like a fallen leaf. His dark eyes were filled with confusion, and other than the dang in his ears, there was no other sound. With a loud bang, the black bear spirit crashed into a hill again, creating another hole and tearing apart some grayish-black wild vines. Roar! The black bear spirit landed on the ground and struggled for a moment. He shook his head a few times and opened his mouth, revealing his blood-red tongue and snow-white teeth. Not only was he extremely vicious, but as the black bear spirit roared, waves of demonic aura surged under his black fur. This black bear spirit looked like he was going to stake it all on this one throw of his life against Xiaohua. Seeing this, Xiaohua also became alert. With the wishful staff in his hand, he took out a few fire talismans from the space and slowly flew towards the black bear spirit. However, just as Xiaohua flew closer, the black bear spirit roared and jumped up from the ground again. But at the same time, he fell to his knees with a plop. With two bang-bang sounds, the black bear spirit's forehead hit the rocks on the ground, sending the rocks flying. The black bear spirit was still sobbing as he shouted, Grandpa, you're my grandpa. Please spare my life. This lowly one is just a small fry in the Black Wind Ridge. I can't compare to the first and second masters. This lowly one has never eaten a human before. You saw it very clearly just now. This lowly one only ate a cow leg. But I was afraid that the other spirits would laugh at me. So I had no choice but to eat the cow leg as a human leg. Moreover, those people were all eaten by the big bosses of the Black Wind Ridge. It has nothing to do with me. Xiaohua was inexplicably astonished. He looked at the black bear spirit who was begging for mercy in disbelief. Tears flowed out of the black bear spirit's eyes, which had already returned to its original brown color. Snot flowed out of its two small nostrils. It really looked like it was covered in snot and tears. Get up. Xiaohua was not afraid of the black bear spirit's tricks. He flew closer and said lightly, "Yes, Grandpa," the black bear spirit responded and got up from the ground. He lowered his head pitifully and stood there. He even stole glances at Xiaohua, as if trying to figure out Xiaohua's thoughts. "I'm not your grandpa." Xiaohua glared at him. "Just call me Taoist priest." "Yes, Taoist priest." Seeing that Xiaohua did not directly kill him, the black bear spirit was immediately happy. He smiled and agreed. "I wonder why Taoist priest has come to my Black Cloud Ridge." Although the black bear spirit wanted to smile, there was no flattery on his ferocious face. It was a kind of indescribable fierceness. Xiaohua frowned and asked curiously, "Just now you said that you were a small fry of the Black Wind Ridge. Why did you say that this is the Black Cloud Ridge?" "Oh, okay, Taoist priest knows." The black bear spirit hurriedly replied. "This is the Black Cloud Ridge. However, the Black Cloud Ridge is divided into 3 areas. They are the Black Wind Ridge, the Black Cloud Ridge, and the Lion Rock Ridge. I'm following the Black Wind Ridge's King Wancho. So it's like that." Hearing this, Xiaohua complained in his heart. He did not have time to ask the black bear spirit about the situation of the Black Cloud Ridge and the appearance of the spirits in the other 2 areas. He asked, "I have a few disciples who went missing near the Copper Pillar country. I searched for them in the surrounding hundreds of li, but there was no trace of them. I suspect that they were captured by the spirits of the Black Cloud Ridge. That's why I came to the Black Cloud Ridge to search. If you can help this old man find those disciples, this old man will spare your life. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Chapter 3349. Taoist Elder. Upon hearing that Xiaohua had come to the Black Cloud Ridge to search for someone, the black bear spirit became anxious and shouted, "If you are looking for someone, you can go to the cave abode in the ridge to search. Why are you waiting here? Besides, if a human fell into the hands of the Black Cloud Ridge demons, which one of them didn't have a taste first? How can they still be intact at this time? Taoist Elder, you are making things difficult for me." Also, the black bear spirit pointed to the mountain in the distance and said, "Black Wind Ridge has King Wancho, Mo Yin Ridge has King Golden Eagle, and Lion Rock has King Wancher. Which one of them is not powerful? Taoist Elder, I can't even fight you, let alone these monster kings. Black Wind Ridge is fine, I can help you look, but the other 2 monster kings, I can't even get close to them. How can I help you find someone? Please take pity on me and let me live. Rather than offending 2 monster kings, I would rather die in your hands." Since you want to die, this old man will fulfill your wish." Xiaohua waved the staff in his hand and smashed it at the hill next to the black bear spirit. With a boom, a piece of the hill was shaved off. As the dust flew, the black bear spirit quickly shrank back in fear. Xiaohua didn't pay any attention to him. He raised the wishful steel staff again and coldly said, "Wait until this old man smashes your brain. Then I will go to the Black Wind Ridge, Lion Mountain one by one. First I will kill their first master. Then I will ask the second master if he has seen this old man's disciple. Whoever says he hasn't, I will kill him. Until all the demons in this Black Wind Ridge are killed." Taoist Elder. Wait. The black bear spirit felt the baleful aura on Xiaohua's wishful scepter and hurriedly hugged his head. "Elder, please tell me what your disciple looks like and where he disappeared to. I will go back and ask if he was taken to Black Wind Ridge. If he is not in Black Wind Ridge, I really can't help you." Umph. You really don't know what's good for you. Xiaohua shook the wishful staff and scolded. It seems that you will only be honest if I beat you up. Then, Xiaohua told the black bear spirit about Xiaojian and the others' appearances, and where they might have gone missing. Unfortunately, the black bear spirit was confused. After all, in the eyes of demons, everyone was divided into two types, delicious and not delicious. How could the black bear spirit remember the faces of Xiaojian and the others? Taoist priest, can you confirm that your disciple didn't go somewhere else? The black bear spirit could not help but cry out. Maybe they see a beautiful woman and marry into her family first. Xiaohua really didn't expect this black bear spirit's heart to be so filthy. He spat and scolded. Do you think that my human clan is as promiscuous as your Yao clan? After he finished scolding her, Xiaohua was also stunned. It seems that the phrase promiscuous is not suitable to be used here, right? Fortunately, the black bear spirit was not a Confucian cultivator and did not know how to use words. He did not know what promiscuous meant and could only blankly listen to Xiaohua's scolding. This old man has already searched the surroundings several hundred miles. If there's really any possibility, then it's that he was captured by you evil spirits. Xiaohua said coldly. Didn't you capture a few mortals to eat just now? Taoist priest, can you roughly tell me the time and location earlier? The black bear spirit was helpless and could only ask again. After Xiaohua finished speaking, the black bear spirit blinked his small eyes and smiled. If it is as Taoist priest said, then at that time, that direction is really where my black wind ridge hunted. If Taoist priest is not worried, this little one will return to the cave and help Taoist priest take a look. Don't worry, this little one does not eat human flesh, and Taoist priest's methods. This little one is also clear. If your disciples are in Black Wind Ridge, this little one will definitely bring them here. How can this old man believe you? Xiaohua smiled faintly and said, just bring this old man to your Black Wind Ridge's cave entrance. Please don't. Taoist priest. The black bear spirit panicked when he heard this. If this little one brings you there, the other demons will know that this little one brought you there. How can this little one stay in Black Wind Ridge in the future? That's still better than being beaten to death by this old man. Xiaohua said coldly. Don't worry, Taoist priest. The black bear spirit said anxiously. This little one will definitely bring your disciples here, as long as they are in Black Wind Ridge and have not been eaten by others. Hearing the black bear spirit say that they were eaten, Xiaohua was also a little anxious. After thinking for a while, he waved his hand and the divine power centipede flew out. Xiaohua pointed at the divine power centipede and said, keep this thing in your pocket. If you don't come in 2 hours, this old man will let this thing bite you into pieces. Hiss! The black bear spirit saw the ferocity of the divine power centipede and the demon chi and golden light around it. He couldn't help but be afraid and gasped. He instinctively felt the power of the divine power centipede and knew that Xiaohua was not lying. However, after a while, the black bear spirit's brown-yellow eyes turned. He did not hesitate to grab the divine power centipede and put it in his pocket. He smiled and said, since Taoist priest does not trust this little one, then this little one will let Taoist priest be at ease. Good. Xiaohua saw that the black bear spirit was rarely forthright and nodded in approval. Go ahead. Whether you find them or not, this old man will not take your life today. Yes. This little one will go over now. The black bear spirit became very obedient. He urged the demon cloud and quickly went into the depths of the black cloud ridge. Xiaohua looked at the back of the black bear spirit and snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, the wishful steel staff returned to the space. Then he stretched out his hand and a black flame appeared in his hand. Immediately, a wisp of black gas appeared around Xiaohua. Xiaohua did not activate the flying talisman, but the black light in the black gas flashed and Xiaohua disappeared. There was no trace of spiritual power fluctuation at all. This was the demon realm's concealment technique. The black chi and black chi were naturally the result of Xiaohua's blood drop heavenly cave. Although the demon realm's concealment technique was powerful, it still relied on the demon fire and demon blood. The current hidden immortal continent was the world of Confucian cultivators. The righteous chi of Confucian cultivators was the nemesis of the demon blood and demon fire. Xiao Hua did not want others to know that he had the demon realm's technique and attract the pursuit of thousands of righteous Confucian cultivators. The black bear spirit urged the demon cloud and rushed into the depths of the black cloud ridge. Although his speed was still the same, on his ugly bear face, a pair of eyes would turn from time to time. It was obvious that he was absent-minded. The depths of the black cloud ridge were different from the outside. Not only were there more black clouds, completely covering the sky, the blood-red sunset in the sky could not shed any light. Moreover, there was a cold mist in the black clouds. This mist was very light, not to mention that it was impossible to see in the twilight. Even if the sun was high up in the sky, it might not be able to detect it. Moreover, this mist had an extremely strong corrosive power. Not to mention the bottom of the mountain, there were scars on the cobblestones of the dried-up riverbed. Even the rocks on the surface of the mountain were seeped with drops of black water. When the mountain wind blew, a large amount of black water would fall down. However, after entering the black cloud ridge, there were many trees and thorns. Needless to say, the thorns covered the ground and the surroundings of the mountain range. Sharp thorns flickered with a black light. Not only were they not corroded by the black mist, they were also extremely poisonous. The trees were also strange. The tree trunks had a layer of bark that looked like cow leather and was covered in layers of black water. The leaves on the branches were about a foot long and were also grayish-black in color. What was special was that there seemed to be a layer of oil on top of the grayish-black color. The faint mist condensed on the leaves and could not stay there. It directly turned into water droplets and slowly dripped down. The water droplet flew through the air and landed on the thorns on the ground. It spun a little before falling back down. Within the thorns, white bones and corroded holes could be seen everywhere. Where the black water droplet landed, it corroded another small hole into the skeleton. The black bear spirit naturally ignored all of this. He lowered his head and continued to fly forward. Suddenly, a sharp shriek sounded from the tree hole in front of him. The black bear spirit was so frightened that he stopped in mid-air. Second leader, amidst the hiss, two dirty and smelly demons that looked like bats flew out. The one in front was very servile as he called out, "Why are you going to Lion Rock? Is this the first leader's idea? Why am I going to Lion Rock?" The black bear spirit roared, as if he was frightened by the two little demons. The two little demons did not seem to be afraid of the black bear spirit. Although they called him second leader, they smiled and said, "If second leader is not going to Lion Rock, why are you here? Moreover, this little one saw that you were flying in the direction of Lion Rock." At this point, the other little demon looked to his left and smiled. "Second leader, if you are going to find the 10,000 Lions King, Wan Wang will call me. I'm not happy with my life in the Black Wind Ridge either. I still want to follow second master to the Lion Rock to enjoy a good life." Scram. The black bear spirit's face was covered by black fur. It was not clear whether it was black or red. He scolded angrily. "I was just thinking about something. That's why I went the wrong way." With that, the black bear spirit controlled his demon cloud and flew in another direction. After the black bear spirit flew far away, the two small demons looked at each other and shouted a few words. They pointed at the black bear spirit and laughed, as if they didn't see the black bear spirit as their second in command. Then they took out two small pitchforks from the tree hole and flew around. The black bear spirit pulled himself together. Seeing that the sun was about to set, he did not dare to delay. He hurriedly controlled his demon cloud and rushed to the front of a cave before the sky turned dark. This cave was in the middle of a mountain. It was blocked by many mountain rocks and black wood. Not only was it difficult to see with the naked eye, but it was also difficult to find it with one's divine perception. What made Xiao Hua, who was following behind, surprised was that the black bear spirit seemed to be homesick when he reached the cave. He did not dare to enter directly. Instead, he flew around the cave a few times. Finally, as if he had made up his mind, he gritted his teeth and flew over. Chapter 3350. The entrance to the cave was not small, but to the black bear spirit, it was a little cramped. The black bear spirit's body flashed with black gas, shrinking his body slightly before entering. As soon as he entered the cave, there was a winding stone path. On both sides of the stone path, there were a few torches that had just been lit. This stone path looked different from the outside. It was huge, at least a few feet long, and the stone path looked very long, as if it had chiseled through the entire mountain ridge. Second Elder is back. A voice that was not very enthusiastic came from above the black bear spirit's head. The black bear spirit looked up, and a black bat that was a few feet long was hanging upside down on top of his head, baring its teeth and greeting him. The black bear spirit answered casually, and was about to step onto the stone path when the bat called out again. Second Elder, don't be impatient. What is today's password? Password? The black bear spirit stopped, raised his head, and said coldly, You tell me what is today's password? Hee, Second Elder. The bat laughed. Don't make things difficult for me. Today is my turn to be on duty. Without the password, I dare not let any demons pass. This is the king's order. And, unfortunately, before he could finish, the black bear spirit spat and scolded. Since you know that I am the Second Elder, you should know that I never remember any passwords. I have been busy outside all day, and I am so hungry that my stomach is shriveled. Who has the patience to talk to you here? With that, the black bear spirit ignored the bat and turned to step onto the stone path. However, just as the black bear spirit took 2 steps, there was a loud bang, and a hole appeared in the stone wall on his left. From that hole, a metal ball about 10 feet in size flew out. This metal ball was covered in spikes, and it made a woo-woo sound. The wind that it set off blew the black bear spirit's straight brown hair askew. Ah! The black bear spirit was shocked, and was caught off guard. Without thinking, he rushed forward and dodged the metal ball. The sharp spikes on the metal ball cut through the black bear spirit's armor. The black bear spirit did not care whether he was injured or not. He hurriedly stretched out his hand, and took out the wrought iron staff that had been smashed in half by Xiaohua's wishful staff. It was also at this moment, another gust of wind whistled, and from the front of his head, an iron ball about 10 feet thick and as thick as an arm smashed towards him. The black bear spirit's expression changed. He raised his wrought steel staff to block it. Unfortunately, the wrought steel staff was no longer the same as before. The black bear spirit immediately realized that black clouds had appeared beneath his feet as he flew backwards. Fortunately, the iron ball had chains attached to it. It drew an arc in the air and disappeared into the stone wall. However, the black bear spirit retreated to the entrance of the cave. Damn it! The black bear spirit raised his head and looked at the bat on the stone wall. He knew that the trap was set up by this fellow. Unfortunately, he could only curse a little and did not dare to kill him. However, the black bear spirit really did not remember what today's password was. He could not help but stand there awkwardly. Just then, there was a commotion outside the cave. Thud, thud, thud. That a few heavy footsteps were heard. 3 bear spirits that looked like the black bear spirit, but were 1 size smaller walked in, each carrying a few people or beasts. The few bear spirits saw the big black bear spirit, and were slightly surprised. They hurriedly went forward and called out, Big brother. Unfortunately, before they could say anything, a sinister voice sounded from above their heads. Big brother, who in this Black Wind Ridge calls him Big brother? You guys really dare to call him that? Yes, second master. The other bear spirit seemed to be smart and quickly changed his words. We are used to calling him Big brother. We really can't change it. In the future, we brothers will be careful. We will definitely be careful. Yes, we understand. The other bear spirits hurriedly agreed. The black bear spirit at the side felt a little sour. The hesitation from before seemed to have made a decision. Since the black bear spirit had made up his mind, he did not waste any more time and asked in a low voice, What's today's password? It seemed that all the black bear spirits had the same brain. They could not even remember a simple password. The 4 black bear spirits looked at each other. The one who looked smart earlier hesitated and said, It seems to be, a little girl who picks something? A little girl who picks flowers? A little girl who picks people's heads? A little girl who picks pine nuts? A little girl who picks rocks? The 4 bear spirits started guessing one by one under the bat. Looking at the bear spirits who were being fooled by him, the bat on the stone wall sneered. Unfortunately, he did not notice that the black bear spirit, as the second master, had a cold glint in his eyes. A little girl who picks mushrooms. One of the bear spirits suddenly had an idea and shouted out the password for today's Blackwind Ridge. Yes, yes, pick mushrooms, pick mushrooms. The bear spirits were enlightened. Damn it, what's so good about mushrooms? They can't compare to a little girl. What's so good about picking them? Second master, please. The bat was done laughing and said in a low voice. The black bear spirit snorted and led the 4 bear spirits onto the stone path. As expected, the mechanism on the stone path did not appear again. The stone path was very long and curved. There were many forks in the path as well. Different bats would hide in the dark at each fork and ask for the password. The black bear spirit had to suppress his temper and answer every time. As for the patrol teams that occasionally passed by the stone path, they were all black bears or other beasts. They were respectful to the black bear spirit and did not dare to question him. Big Brother, after passing a dark turn and seeing that there were no bats around, the smart bear spirit lowered his voice and said, "Something's not right. Why did the king suddenly think of using a password? What's not right? Didn't he use it before?" The black bear spirit replied indifferently, "I remember that it's even more complicated than this little girl. The problem is not that he used it before, Big Brother." The bear spirit was a little anxious. The problem is that he used it too frequently. Just now at the cave entrance. Was Big Brother blocked by those blood bats? Didn't those blood bats lying in ambush ask him the same thing? It wasn't so troublesome in the past, right? Even if Big Brother can't remember the password, he definitely wouldn't block the entrance and not let us in, right? Damn it, this is our own cave. How dare he not let us in ourselves? Another bear spirit seemed to understand something and was furious. What are you talking about?" The black bear spirit snorted and said indifferently, "This used to be our own cave. But since we've submitted to King Wancho, this cave belongs to King Wancho. We're all subordinates of the king. We do whatever the king tells us to do. As for the password, that's the king's wit. If I were the king, I wouldn't be able to come up with such a brilliant plan." Big Brother the bear spirit was stunned. That old bat slapped without waiting for the bear spirit to finish. The black bear spirit slapped the bear spirit's face and scolded, "That's the king." Not. With that, he left without looking back. The bear spirits were a little dejected. They followed behind the black bear spirit and quickly caught up. The cave abode in Blackwind Ridge was really big, but the black bear spirit was very familiar with it. After about half the time it took to finish a meal, it walked past a waterfall-like water curtain and came face to face with a hall that was about 100 feet wide. This hall was very simple. Other than a few thick stalactites supporting the 4 corners like pillars, there were some rough stone benches and stone tables scattered on the floor of the hall. On the floor, other than some white bones and skeletons, there were also some bloody and smelly skeletons of beasts and humans. At this moment, the hall was a little noisy. About 100 beastly little demons were busy. Some were holding wine cups in their hands, while others were holding bloody flesh. These little demons walked among the few stone tables, as if they were setting something up. Looking at the side of the hall, other than a huge wine jar, a steaming stove, and a mess of weapons, there were about 10 people of various colors who were on the verge of death. These people were either unconscious with their heads lowered, or with their eyes slightly open. However, all of them looked dispirited, no different from lambs waiting to be slaughtered. When the black bear spirit entered the hall, a few little demons nearby hurriedly bowed. However, the black bear spirit was distracted. He waved his hand and his gaze landed on the dozens of captured humans. Unfortunately, the black bear spirit looked at them for a while. Not only did he not see Xiao Jian and the rest, he did not even see anyone wearing a Taoist robe. A trace of regret appeared on the black bear spirit's face for no reason. It was as if he was extremely disappointed that Xiao Jian and the rest were not here. "Second brother, you're back?" At this moment, a sharp voice sounded, as if it could tear the black bear spirit's ears apart. The black bear spirit hurriedly turned his head and put on a fawning smile. He shouted, "Great king, this little one is back. What good things have happened today? Why did the great king arrange such a grand banquet?" However, when he saw the scene in the depths of the hall, his expression changed. There was a high platform in the depths of the hall. At the edge of the platform, there was a short bone wall made of skeletons, separating the platform from the hall. On the platform, there were originally 2 stone chairs made of tiger skin. Now there were 3. Sitting on the centermost stone chair was a 2-zhang-tall bat monster. The bat monster had 2 pitch-black fleshy wings that were 3 to 4 zhang long. At this moment, one of the fleshy wings extended a fleshy claw to grab the stone wall, while the other fleshy claw grabbed a fist-sized wine cup. The bat monster's face was triangular. Its 2 scarlet eyes stared unblinkingly at the black bear spirit. On the left of the bat monster, there was another bat monster sitting on the stone chair that the black bear spirit was originally sitting on. However, this bat monster was snow white. Layers of white fur covered its body like snowflakes. This bat monster's posture was similar to the one sitting in the middle. They both held a wine cup in their hands. Their scarlet eyes were also looking at the black bear spirit. Chapter 33:51. Come, come, second brother. This is the Snowbat King that Big Brother has mentioned to you many times. Come over and greet him. The bat in the middle is obviously King Wancho. Seeing the black bear spirit in a daze, he hurriedly calls out, "Yes, King." The black bear spirit hurriedly runs over. Without waiting for him to reach the stage, he hurriedly salutes. "Greetings, Snowbat King. King has always been talking about Snowbat King. I have always admired him. I did not expect to finally meet him today. Come, let me toast Snowbat King." As the black bear spirit speaks, he reaches out and picks up a jar of wine from the stone table beside him and raises it. "Haha, second brother, don't be anxious." Without waiting for Snowbat King to speak, King Wancho laughs. "Snowbat King is here to seek refuge with my Black Wind Ridge. Since he is here, he will not leave. In the future, you will have plenty of opportunities to drink. Today is a banquet to welcome him. In a while, many brothers will be toasting him. Don't let him drink too much. Oh, that's right. In a while, you still have to lead a group of brothers to toast him. Similarly, don't drink too much now." The black bear spirit is very embarrassed. Holding the jar of wine in midair, he smiles and says, Yes, I understand. I will listen to King's instructions." As he speaks, he places the jar of wine back on the stone table. Seeing the black bear spirit's embarrassment, King Wancho laughs. "Second brother, did you catch anything today? I know that Snowbat King is coming today, and wanted to give you a surprise. I specially let you go out to hunt. Bring the people you caught as a gift for Snowbat King." The black bear spirit is stunned. The people he caught were all saved by Xiaohua. How can there be any living people in his hands now? King Wancho's face changes. He snorts. "What? You went out for a day and you did not find a single person?" Then, King Wancho looks at Snowbat King and says, "Second brother, you know the rules of my Black Wind Ridge. If you go out to hunt and don't catch anything, you will not have meat to eat when you return. Today is a banquet to welcome Snowbat King. Returning empty-handed. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that you do not welcome Snowbat King, or do you have objections to Big Brother's rules?" The black bear spirit is shocked and hurriedly says, "King, you misunderstand. The Snowbat King is the king's good friend. How can I not welcome him? Besides, I didn't know that the Snowbat King would come to my Black Wind Ridge. How could this little one have such thoughts?" King Wancho sneered again. "What a useless thing. You are the second in command of my Black Wind Ridge, and yet you failed to capture anyone. Where is this king's face?" He, great king, the Snowbat King who had been silent all this while opened his mouth and laughed. "I have long heard of the great king's black bear spirit." That day at the Black Cloud Ridge, he was on par with Moyun Ridge and Lion Rock and was a hero. Now that they had pledged their allegiance to the king, under the wise leadership of the king, they would definitely become even more valiant. How could they be useless? Perhaps it's just a coincidence that we didn't meet anyone alive today. I believe that this is just He Xiong's bad luck. It's impossible for He Xiong to have any thoughts in mind. King Wancho snorted coldly and said, since King Snowbat has pleaded for mercy, I will not pursue this matter any further. However, the rules of my Black Wind Ridge cannot be changed. Black Bear Spirit, don't eat meat today. Yes, I understand. When Black Bear Spirit heard that King Wancho no longer called him second in command, and instead called him Black Bear Spirit, he understood and did not dare to refute. He lowered his head and hurriedly replied, Great King. King Snowbat laughed from the side again. I have just arrived at Black Wind Ridge, and I have already let Black Bear Spirit starve. How am I going to interact with him in the future? Oh, I have a few people here that I picked up on the way here. How about this as a gift for Black Bear Spirit? With that, King Snowbat waved his hand and took out 5 people from the small universal pouch at his waist and threw them onto the high platform. Ha ha ha. All right, we will do as King Snowbat says. King Wancho laughed and glared at Black Bear Spirit. Why aren't you thanking King Snowbat? However, Black Bear Spirit seemed to have lost his soul. His eyes stared straight at the 5 people on the high platform, and did not say a single word. This was because one of the 5 people was Xiao Jian in his Daoist robe. The other 4 people were Lu Yi and Yuanya. However, Xiao Jian and Lu Yi opened their eyes as if they had just woken up from a dream. When they saw everything in front of them, their faces turned pale. As for the incomparably valiant Yuanya, his eyes were tightly shut as if he had fainted. Black Bear Spirit. King Wancho was enraged. He almost flew up and shouted, Are you rebelling? I called you and you dare not answer? Great King, Great King. Black Bear Spirit woke up and hurriedly shouted, I was distracted for a moment. Please calm down, Great King. Distracted? What are you distracted for? King Wancho sneered and asked, Could it be that you have other thoughts in your heart? Black Bear Spirit smiled and pointed at the 5 people. I was surprised by King Snowbat's methods. This seems to be a Daoist from the Daoist sect. He should have some tricks up his sleeves. For King Snowbat to capture 5 Daoists in one go, he is definitely stronger than me. I admire King Snowbat from the bottom of my heart. How about this? I admit that I am no match for King Snowbat. How about we give King Snowbat the position of the 2nd head of Blackwind Ridge? I am willing to be the 3rd head. Please allow me, Great King. Seeing Black Bear Spirit being so tactful, King Wancho laughed and raised the wine cup in his hand. All right, we will do as 3rd brother says. King Snowbat will be the 2nd head of Blackwind Ridge. Come, let us have a drink. Black Bear Spirit saw that King Wancho did not say anything and drank first. He helplessly picked up the wine jar from the stone table beside him, and respectfully drank a few mouthfuls with the 2 of them. Good wine. King Snowbat sighed. Great King's wine is indeed mouth-watering. However, if there is only good wine and no meat, wouldn't it spoil the mood? Come, Great King. This person's muscles are firm and very strong. Why don't you have a taste? With that said, King Snowbat used the small claws on his wings to grab Yuanya, and threw him to King Wancho. Many thanks, 2nd brother. King Wancho took Yuanya and touched him with his claws. He was immediately overjoyed. Come, 3rd brother, this boy is also very tender. The Snowbat King threw Lu Yi to the Black Bear Spirit again. Black Bear Spirit helplessly caught him, and watched as King Snowbat picked another slightly younger person. His mind raced, trying to think of a way to save Yuanya and Lu Yi. However, when he saw King Wancho's teeth moving towards Yuanya's neck, Black Bear Spirit's clumsy mind still could not come up with any ideas. Fortunately, at this critical moment, Black Bear Spirit shouted, Wait! Oh! King Wancho was slightly taken aback. It was also at this moment that a trace of astonishment appeared on his extremely ugly face. A faint red demonic mist instantly appeared around his body as his entire body flew to the side like a ghost. Ooh! A hoarse roar of anger came from King Wancho's bloody mouth at the same time. Woo! King Wancho dodged extremely quickly, but a stick that appeared out of thin air was even faster. The sound of the wind from the stick combined with King Wancho's roar had already hit his head. Wah wah! King Wancho spat out a sky-piercing sound wave. Black Bear Spirit saw with his own eyes that waves of air were shattered by the sound wave. Strands of something that looked like void black silk appeared in the air and rushed towards the stick and the mysterious person behind it. Damn it! Black Bear's spirit was stunned on the spot, trembling with fear. It wasn't just because of King Wancho's sound wave that could shatter everything. That day he was knocked unconscious by this sound wave, causing the Black Wind Ridge to fall into the hands of the bat monsters. It was also because he was extremely familiar with this club. Not long ago, he was almost killed by this club that could stretch and retract. How could the Black Bear spirit not know that Xiao Hua had already followed him here? He almost groaned as he cried out, "What should I do?" Black Bear spirit only cried out once because the moment King Wancho's sound wave was released, the entire cave dwelling shook like a huge wave. Waves of pain that felt like knives cutting through the Black Bear spirit's mind grew. He could no longer pay attention to the battle between Xiao Hua and King Wancho, hugging his head and rolling on the ground. Of course, when Black Bear spirit was lying down, he did not forget to carefully place Lu Yi under a table. When Black Bear spirit was lying down, he missed a good show. Although King Wancho's sound attack was extremely powerful, and something similar to spatial cracks blocked the wishful stick, the wishful stick did not seem to be afraid. Where the stick passed, these extremely powerful cracks were all destroyed. The cracks that had been destroyed immediately recovered. King Wancho was shocked and flapped his wings again, preparing to fly. Furthermore, King Wancho had already calculated that the head of the club was only at the bottom of his feet. His flight was definitely several tens of feet. Although the newcomer did not reveal himself, from the way the club moved, it was clear that the newcomer's flying technique was not as fast as his. As long as he could avoid this sneak attack, King Wancho was confident that he could escape from the cave dwelling of Black Cloud Ridge. He was even confident that he could join forces with King Snowbat to kill the person who came. King Wancho thought so and did so. Of course, the effect was as he thought. Seeing that he had escaped the attack range of the stick, King Wancho still had time to throw away the abyss cliff in his hand. He looked again at King Snowbat, who had just reacted behind the stick, and opened his mouth to attack again. At this time, something happened that made his soul fly out of his body. The head of the club that had already landed on his chest suddenly became larger and longer at a speed faster than the flying sword. Without waiting for him to react, it immediately pierced into his chest. Pooh, the golden silk soft armor did not have any resistance at all. King Wancho's demon body that he was so proud of also could not block this attack. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.